Rebirth of the Hidden Mist Village in the Ninja World. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 126, Stabilizing the Situation. Because his own ability was not enough to participate in the study of the art of war armor, Zen also left the ancestral hall. What he can do now is to intensify his own training and improve his own strength. Due to his age and immature physical development, his chakra volume cannot be greatly increased in a short period of time, but his own fighting skills still have a lot of room for improvement. Especially the physical skills and ninjutsu that he has mastered. It takes a long time to practice, constantly improve his proficiency, and tap his potential. Perhaps unwilling to give up, after the failure of the first raid, Gotochi Yagura raided several times. But unfortunately, every time before he approached the Angry Sea City, he was discovered in advance by the perception-type ninjas and the Jinchuriki troops, and cooperated with the group's strength to intercept him. Because of the loss once, Gotochi Yagura became extremely cautious in the next few times. Every time he found himself surrounded, he ran away desperately to get rid of the entanglement. Faced with such a situation, there was no way to deal with the Jinchuriki troops, and they could only let the other party escape. However, for them, this result is also good. If Yagura insists on going his own way, even if they can defeat the opponent with a specially formed team, they will inevitably have to pay a certain amount of casualties. It is always good to solve the problem without losing anyone. And with the failure of the raids again and again, Yagura seemed to have completely lost his patience, gave up this impulsive combat plan of going deep alone, and returned to the territory of the conservatives. After receiving the communication from the border fog ninja that Yagura had retreated, Zen and others who stayed in the rear finally breathed a sigh of relief. Although there are Jinchuriki troops to deal with, the plan is dead, and people are alive. As long as there is a mistake, the entire Angry Sea City will face a catastrophe. The departure of Yagura was like a stone weighing on everyone's heart being removed, and it was finally a lot more comfortable. Because neither side was sure of defeating the opponent, the conservatives and the reformists chose to stop fighting and quietly accumulate strength. And as both sides temporarily stopped fighting, the neutral faction headed by Hazuki Kanzaki did not dare to mess around. For a while, the situation on the entire central island was much calmer. Of course, this was only for the three forces. Although they did not fight each other anymore, they tacitly sent a small force into the area occupied by the Wind and Snow tribes to conduct a sweep. This group of rebels was their common enemy and the target that the daimyo of the Land of Water had named to be executed. Perhaps they did not expect the encirclement and suppression to come so quickly, and the rebels were not well prepared. At the beginning, the small forces of the three forces were unstoppable and almost pushed to the rebels' lair. However, after the other side reacted, the small forces of the three forces were repelled again and barely stabilized the situation. However, with 1 against 3, the rebels were not a match after all. If they were not worried about losing too much and being picked up by the other forces, the three armies would have been able to wipe out the rebellious Wind and Snow tribes in an instant. Even so, the sphere of influence occupied by the rebels was slowly shrinking under the stranglehold of the three parties. If there were no accidents, it would only be a matter of time before the rebels were defeated according to this trend of slow erosion. But the accident still happened. In the 6th month after the official split of Kirigakure, there were wandering ninjas from Konoha, Kumogakure, and other places who appeared on the battlefield, and they were hired to help the rebels. What a trouble. Looking at the battle report sent back from the front line, Zen couldn't help but sigh. Those wandering ninjas who joined the rebels were not a big problem. After all, a mob could not make a difference. But the mercenaries from Konoha and Kumogakure had to be cautious. Those ninjas from large ninja villages were much stronger than wandering ninjas, which would inevitably lead to increased losses. In addition, this also showed the attitude of Konoha and Kumogakure. They wanted to muddy the waters of Kirigakure, the more muddy the better, so that they would not threaten their safety. This also meant that it would not be easy to wipe out the rebels. It's really troublesome. I heard that Lady Terumi Mei has stopped allocating personnel to the front line and only kept a small force to carry out harassment operations in the rebels' territory. Taketori Shinsuke, who was sitting next to him, whispered, "It seems that there won't be a major war in the country in the short term." Ryuze came to a conclusion immediately based on these words. The conservatives are a tough nut to crack, the neutrals are fence sitters, and the only soft persimmon rebel has the support of Konoha and Kumogakure behind him. If you don't want to be swallowed up by any of the forces, you can only lay down your arms, preserve your strength, and then quietly accumulate strength until you are sure enough to consider taking action. By the way, how is the progress of the medical team? Ryuze turned his head and looked at the people around him and asked. After completely settling down, he ordered the medical ninjas in the clan to quickly restart the research on the corpse bone vein, hoping to solve the defect problem of the corpse bone vein as soon as possible. Taketori Shinsuke sat up straight and said seriously, "I happened to visit the medical team yesterday. They said that with the support of Orochimaru's previous research data, they have made many new discoveries and progress. But it will take a lot of time to figure out the root cause and solve the problem." As he said, he couldn't help shaking his head. The hidden danger of the corpse vein is like a huge rock pressing on the heads of the Taketori clan. If they cannot remove it, their clan will never have a future. Let the medical team hurry up. Enough of our clan members have died. Standing up, Ryuze looked into the distance and couldn't help but sigh. In just the past 6 months, 5 clan members have died silently at home due to the defects of the corpse vein. Even though he has seen death on the battlefield, he still feels scared when facing this silent and unpredictable way of death. Not only him, but also the rest of the clan members. No one knows if the next person will be him. Wait a minute, I'll go and urge them. Taketori Shinsuke nodded. Also, we need to verify the information about the old clan leader as soon as possible. Ryuze turned around, glanced at Taketori Shinsuke, and said, "The old clan leader and the other 4 elders have not shown up for too long, and rumors have begun to spread in the clan. Just a few days ago, he received information from Terumi Mei, saying that it seemed that the old clan leader was found inside the rebels. Therefore, Terumi Mei sent someone to ask what was going on." To be on the safe side, Ryuze naturally did not tell the truth and just perfunctorily answered. However, this does not mean that he will ignore this news. If the old clan leader really fell into the hands of the rebels, it would be a serious problem. Therefore, he must have someone verify this information immediately. Chapter 127, Discussion, Part 1. Yes, I will send someone to verify the news as soon as possible. Taketori Shinsuke nodded vigorously. He also understood the importance of this news. After dealing with all the chores, Ryuze suddenly felt much better. It's been a long time since we last practiced together. Why don't you practice with me? He looked at Taketori Shinsuke and asked tentatively. Because of his status as the acting clan leader, he has been staying in the City of the Sea for nearly half a year and has hardly gone out. Except for the first time he intercepted Yagura, he never had the opportunity to fight the enemy again. It's not that he doesn't want to go out, but many Taketori Jonin are unwilling to let him go out. First, because he is not strong enough. Everyone is very worried about any accidents. Second, because the acting clan leader also needs to deal with the clan and some other affairs. He can't leave his post at will. Therefore, in the past 6 months, in addition to handling official business, he can only spend all his time on self-training. Although life is boring, it has greatly improved his strength. Especially in his spare time, he tried to compare and compete with his fellow compatriots in the clan to further hone his actual combat ability. By now, he has been able to defeat most of the young chunin of the same clan. Only those veterans with rich combat experience are not opponents. It's not that he is not capable enough, but that he does not have enough experience against the enemy. Others have accumulated valuable combat experience on the battlefield after countless battles with the enemy, and their grasp of the opportunity is much more accurate than his. It is precisely because of this difference in grasping the opportunity that he always loses to them by a hair's breadth. Now, he wants to try how much he is still behind the Jonin. No problem. It's been a long time since I last sparred with you, sir. I also want to see how much progress you have made. Taketori Shinsuke stood up and accepted the fight very straightforwardly. Then, the two jumped out and landed on the open space in the courtyard. Because it was a sparring match and he was stronger, Taketori Shinsuke did not rush to attack. Instead, he induced bone spurs from the palm of his hand and slowly took a defensive posture. Seeing this, Ryuzen also understood the other party's intentions. Then I won't be polite. He also spread his hands, and bone spurs appeared from his palms. Then he rushed to Taketori Shinsuke and poked the bone spur on his right hand. However, Taketori Shinsuke's reaction was obviously faster. He immediately waved his left hand and used the bone spur on his palm to push the bone spur aside. But after half a year of precipitation, Ryuzen's strength has far surpassed before, and his offensive is not just that simple. Now, at the moment, when his bone spurs were pushed away, he immediately mobilized chakra to activate the corpse bone vein. 3 bone spurs suddenly emerged from his right arm and then grew rapidly, stabbing towards the target that was close at hand. Faced with this sudden attack, Taketori Shinsuke was not surprised but happy. Very good, sir. You have already mastered the use of the corpse bone vein. This timing and this growth speed are already stronger than most of the young people in the tribe. However, this alone is not enough to defeat him. He just gently pushed his right foot against the ground, and then he quickly stepped back, avoiding the sudden attack of the 3 bone spurs in time. After all, the reaction speed of a jonin is faster than that of a chunin, especially since he is a jonin who excels in physical skills, and his reaction speed is much faster than that of an average jonin. Good opportunity. At this moment, Ryuzen rushed forward again, and then held his breath, and launched a stronger attack. Willow dance in an instant. He waved the bone spurs on both hands, coordinated with the joints of his whole body, and launched a continuous fast attack towards the target in front of him. Looking at the bone spurs piercing quickly in front of him, Taketori Shinsuke nodded again. The attack speed displayed by Ryuzen this time was very fast, but it still did not exceed the limit he could bear. It's just that this move Willow Dance is a combo physical technique that includes 36 attacks. He can parry once, twice, or even more than 10 times, but he can never parry 36 times in a row. In the end, Ryuzen had made too much progress. He could no longer calmly parry every attack from the opponent, like he did at the beginning. However, this did not mean that he could not deal with this move. Dance of Tang Song. He only heard a low roar, and then 36 bone spurs grew out of his body from different parts. He twisted his waist and spun rapidly like a gyroscope. In an instant, streams of air were stirred up as the bone spurs on his body spun, and the dead leaves on the ground also flew into the air. Ryuzen wanted to dodge, but it was too late at such a close distance. Ding. He was unable to stop and pushed the bone spurs on his knees up. He felt as if a heavy hammer had hit his knee bone spurs. Then, the bone spurs broke, and he was blown away by the remaining force of the impact. Fortunately, the bone spurs on his knees were stressed, and it was not his body that directly hit them, so he was not actually injured. After landing, he immediately used the bone spurs on the palm of his hand to pierce the ground, stabilized his body as quickly as possible, and then quickly climbed up from the ground. But before he could catch his breath, Taketori Shinsuke had stopped spinning and rushed up. Because the willow dance was forcibly interrupted, Ryuzen was sore all over at the moment, and he was a little powerless. He didn't dare to rush to attack, so he could only slowly retreat and choose to defend. But Taketori Shinsuke was very fast. He immediately caught up with him and stretched out the bone spurs in his right hand and stabbed him straight. Because the opponent was much faster than him, and his body was sore and his reaction was much slower, Ryuzen didn't waste time dodging, and directly crossed his hands, and then desperately urged the ability of corpse bone vein. In an instant, dozens of bone spurs drilled out of his arms, growing rapidly like sprouting branches. Taketori Shinsuke didn't dodge, and still stabbed his bone spurs in. Kakaka. After stabbing 5 bone spurs that Ryuzen had created, his stabbing finally ran out of energy, and he was stuck by countless wildly growing bone spurs, unable to move. Good adaptability. He nodded and praised again. Seeing that the wildly growing bone spurs were about to pierce him, he immediately cut off the bone spurs in his palm, and then quickly retreated. However, he did not give up the attack. He saw his shoulder shook, and then a round-headed arm bone protruded from his shoulder. He stretched out his right hand to grab it, and then pulled it out, and a 2-foot-long bone spear appeared in his hand. Not good. Seeing this, Ryuzen immediately guessed that the other party should be planning to use Willow Dance. There was no time to recover the messy bone spurs that had grown, so he immediately separated them from the body and freed his hands. Chapter 128, Discussion, Part 2. Corpse Bone Vein. 10 fingers piercing bullets. Ryuzen opened his 10 fingers, concentrated his chakra on his hands, and launched the simplest move. There was no need for too complicated chakra changes. Under the control of the corpse bone vein ability, the fingertips of the 10 fingers turned into macro bone cones and slightly protruded forward, revealing from under the skin of the fingertips. Then, the subsequent joints suddenly proliferated and hit the bone cones in front with force, and 10 macro bone cones immediately shot out from the fingertips. Hearing the sound of breaking through the air, Taketori Shinsuke was slightly moved. Today, this move can already exert considerable lethality in Ryuzen's hands. Although it is still not enough to pose a threat to him, if he is really injured by such a move, it also means his failure. Then, he swung the bone spear in front of him and tapped it several times, accurately knocking 5 bone cones to the ground. As for the remaining 5 bone cones, he silently generated bone spurs from his body and blocked them all. At this time, Ryuzen was less than 2 meters away from him. Then, Taketori Shinsuke suddenly accelerated and swung the bone spear in his hand to cut through. Knowing very well how sharp the tip of the bone spear was, Ryuzen did not dare to let himself be cut and only took a small step back. However, the attack of a Jonin was not so easy to dodge. Taketori Shinsuke only smiled slightly, silently urging his corpse bone vein, and the bone spear in his hand immediately swelled up, bringing Ryuzen back into his best attack range. Seeing this scene, Ryuzen, who knew that he could not avoid it, could only bite the bullet and swing the bone spear in his right hand to meet it, hoping to pick up the dangerous bone spear. Clang! With a crisp collision sound, the bone spear and the bone spear collided with each other. However, the bone spear with stronger power and harder bone was intact, while the bone spear with weaker power and more brittle bone cracked. However, because Taketori Shinsuke did not directly use his special physical skills this time, his destructive power was naturally insufficient, and he was unable to completely break Rokuze's bone spurs with one blow. Rokuze himself was at a disadvantage after all, and he felt like he was struck by lightning, and his entire right arm became numb. Seeing his movement stagnate, Taketori Shinsuke naturally did not miss such an opportunity, and immediately took a new attacking posture. Not good. Recognizing that it was the opening move of Willow Dance, Rokuze was horrified. At this distance, he had no time to dodge. Fight. Helplessly, he could only grit his teeth and quickly produce 36 specific bone spurs from all parts of his body. He was ready to use Karamatsu Dance to block it. Unfortunately, because of the previous confrontation, his strength was much worse, and his entire movement was shocked and stopped for a while. Facing Taketori Shinsuke's attack, he naturally seemed to be a beat slower. Before he could spin, the sharp bone spear had already stabbed over. Fortunately, Ryuzen was quick-witted and immediately turned slightly to meet a bone spear on his body. Clang! The bone spear pierced the thick bone spur, and after a slight pause, it sank into the bone spur on Ryuzen's body. Ryuzen himself also took a small step back because of the force of this stab, but he was not someone who would give up so easily. Karamatsu Dance taking advantage of the inertia of this retreat, he twisted his waist and the whole person suddenly spun like a gyroscope. However, Taketori Shinsuke, who had already performed the Willow Dance, was also not slow. After the first attack, the second attack followed. Clang! There was another crisp collision sound, and the bone spear was undoubtedly blocked by the spinning top. Just as Ryuzen had speculated when he learned this Karamatsu Dance earlier, even if the enemy's attack speed exceeded that of the user of Karamatsu Dance, it would be difficult to directly break through the defense through the gap between the bone spurs of Karamatsu Dance. However, Taketori Shinsuke had already used his ultimate physical skill this time, and the power of each attack was far greater than usual. When blocking this attack, Rokuze's bone spur broke instantly, and a terrifying force was transmitted to his body along the bone spur. In just a moment, the momentum of his entire rotation could not help but stagnate for a moment, and it was obviously much slower. Before he could catch his breath, the third attack followed. Ding. Taketori Shinsuke's attack was still blocked by the bone spur on his body, but this time, not only was the bone spur used for defense broken, but the momentum of his entire rotation was completely stopped. What? Rokuze was horrified. He knew that it was impossible to use the Karamatsu dance to block Taketori Shinsuke's willow dance with his own strength. But he never thought that he could not resist it after only 3 parries. You know, the willow dance is a set of physical skill tricks with 72 attacks. Boom. Then, he was involuntarily blown away by the force of Taketori Shinsuke's third attack, and stopped, only after hitting the wall behind him. Hearing the loud noise inside, the nearby clansman looked over. Lord Rokuze, what happened? An anxious clansman asked loudly inside. Then, a Jonin guard who was guarding Rokuze appeared and explained to everyone seriously. Nothing happened. Lord Rokuze is just sparring with Jonin Shinsuke. Don't worry. So that's how it is. Hearing this answer, everyone breathed a sigh of relief, and then shifted their attention, and lowered their heads to continue their work. On the other side, looking at Rokuze who had just climbed up from the corner, Taketori Shinsuke did not pursue further, and asked with a smile, Lord, do you want to continue? No need. Rokuze smiled bitterly, and waved his hand, rubbing his back and limbs. Although he used the Karamatsu dance to remove a lot of the power of Taketori Shinsuke's attack, he was still shocked by the remaining power of the opponent and his whole body was sore. After this competition, he was very clear about the gap between himself and this person. Whether it was speed or strength, he was still far behind. Seeing that he was a little depressed, Taketori Shinsuke immediately smiled and comforted him. Actually, you have done very well. It is because I'm also good at physical skills that I can suppress you in close combat to this extent. If it were any other unknown Jonin, if they wanted to defeat you with physical skills alone, I'm afraid they would have to spend a lot of extra effort. Even if they were a little more careless, it is not impossible for you to use the bone spurs on your body to suddenly attack and kill them. Hearing this, Rokuze felt much better. If it weren't for Taketori Shinsuke's reminder, he almost forgot that his clan was almost the strongest in physical skills in the entire Kirigakure. Above them, only the 7 ninja swordsmen who practiced swordsmanship to a certain extreme could suppress them. Therefore, his actual physical skills level is still quite good compared to his peers in the entire Kirigakure. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 129. 70% armor. By the way, how is the situation at the Ancestral Hall? Lyuzen asked, dusting off his body. He placed the armor model in the Ancestral Hall and exhibited it to all the clan members so that everyone was qualified to participate in helping the armor's art evolution process. It was not just limited to the original 20 Jonins. Of course, Chunins and Genins like him were not qualified and capable to participate. Only those Jonins who had used chakra and corpse veins to a high level could really provide help. However, there was bound to be chaos when there were too many people. In the first few days, after receiving the news, many clan members excitedly gathered at the Ancestral Hall, and the door of the Ancestral Hall was squeezed and broken several times. It was not until later that they slowly realized that they were not capable enough that they retreated, leaving only those capable and free Jonins to stay at the Ancestral Hall for a long time to help. Despite this, the evolution of the armor's art still received a lot of help from everyone, and the progress was very fast. Lyuzen remembered that in the 3rd month after that, everyone was able to directly create a simple armor skeleton by making hand seals. It has been a month since he last went to the Ancestral Hall, and I believe there should be a lot of progress there. Hearing Lyuzen asking this, Taketori Shinsuke was immediately beaming with joy and said, I happened to go there a few days ago and saw that they can use hand seals to create a 70% level of the armor model. 70%? Ryuze was a little surprised and immediately waved his hand and said, "Let's go and take a look together." Although it has not reached the point of 100% complete restoration, 70% is already very impressive, and it can almost be said that more than half of it has been completed. He can't wait to see what this fully completed armor will look like on a real person. Then, the two of them went out of the yard one after the other and strode towards the direction of the ancestral hall. Soon, they arrived at the ancestral hall of the Taketori clan. At this time, many jonin were surrounding the armor model in the center of the hall, looking at it, writing and drawing on the drawings, as if recording something. Some others stood on the other side, silently activating the corpse bone vein to conduct localized armor experiments. Some people were gathered together, arguing and dancing. If this wasn't the clan ancestral hall, Ryuze couldn't help but worry that they would fight right here. Perhaps they were too focused until Ryuze almost came close. The people closer to the door noticed his arrival. "Hello, sir." Hearing this, the people in the hall also looked over. "Hello, sir." Everyone was stunned at first and then put everything aside and greeted. "Don't be nervous." Ryuze waved his hand and smiled. "I heard that the armor here has been completed 70%, so I came here to see everyone's results." That's right. In another half a year, we should be able to completely complete this armor ritual. A younger jonin couldn't help but excitedly report the good news to Ryuze first. "That's really good news." Ryuze nodded, and he was also very happy. Once this ritual is completely completed, the overall strength of the Taketori clan will definitely improve. But before that, can someone show it to me? Looking around the hall, he asked everyone. Hearing this, many people immediately showed embarrassment. Although the overall armor technique has been completed by nearly 70%, not everyone has mastered this level. They are working together and then unified. Therefore, only those who have mastered the core integration and the highest level of control over the corpse bone vein and chakra have reached this level. At this time, the three who have mastered this armor technique set their eyes on one of them. "Okay, let me do it." The middle-aged man shook his head helplessly and then strode out. "Hello, sir." After coming to Liu's and bowing, he said, "Because the whole set of techniques has not been truly completed, the hand seals that have been constructed are relatively complicated. Please don't laugh at me, sir." As he said this, he began to make hand seals and silently mobilized chakra to activate his corpse bone vein. Looking at the rapidly growing bone spurs on the opponent's body, Ryuze said seriously, "Any technique has a process of gradual perfection. Even if it is not perfect now, you don't have to feel ashamed. Because I firmly believe that you can slowly polish it and make it perfect." As he spoke, the bone spurs on the opponent's body began to bend and began to proliferate in line with the body. Ryuze even noticed that many bone spurs had merged together, like a flat bone plate covering the opponent's body surface. And this change has a trend of getting faster and faster. Soon, Ryuze could no longer see any abrupt bone spurs, and only a layer of continuously growing bone plates remained on the opponent's body. And that layer of bone plate also derived other changes, like an iron ingot placed on an anvil, being hammered and shaped. When the middle-aged man who was demonstrating completely stopped making seals, the bone plates on his body were completely stable and turned into pieces of armor parts connected and covered on his body. Compared with the armor model next to it, the armor on the other party lacks a lot of decorative patterns, so the aesthetics are much worse. Not only that, Ryuze also noticed that the armor on the other party only roughly completed the overall structure, and the parts with more details such as the palms were almost zero coverage. However, he was very satisfied to be able to complete this level in half a year, and he didn't dare to ask for too much. "What about defense? Has the actual defense of the armor been tested?" Ryuze asked curiously. Not yet." The middle-aged man scratched his head and said with a dry laugh, "Because they have been busy with the evolution of the armor technique, they have not had time to test its specific defense capabilities. In this case, let's test it today." Ryuze immediately made a suggestion. Hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up, and they all expressed their opinions. "I agree. I agree too." After studying for so long, they also wanted to see what effect their results had. Then, under the leadership of Ryuze, the group immediately left the ancestral hall and came to the open space outside. Hearing that they were going to test the armor's defensive capabilities, nearby tribesmen gathered around to watch the fun. Who's going to try first? Standing outside the field, Ryuze glanced at the middle-aged man wearing a half-finished armor in the field. Me. Let me do it. Let me do it. Everyone was very active and wanted to go down and try it out. Chapter 130, Testing the Armor, Part 1. Ryuze scanned the crowd and locked onto a young jonin from the same clan. You. He nodded to the jonin. Thank you, sir. The young jonin hurriedly thanked him and then jumped into the field impatiently. Then, he activated the corpse bone veins and two sharp bone spurs emerged from his palm. Tsubaki's dance with awe, he rushed forward and quickly swung the bone spurs in his hand to launch a swift attack on the armor user. In order to test the armor's defense, the user did not resist or dodge, but silently used chakra to absorb the ground and stand firm. Bang bang bang. The young jonin moved quickly, like flowing water, and seemed to be dancing, with a graceful posture, but extremely dangerous, using elbows, knees and other joints continuously, and launching combos with the bone spurs. Ryuze could not even see the other party's movements clearly, and could only see that after each collision, the armor wearer would involuntarily take a step back. By the time the 36 consecutive hits of the Tsubaki dance were finished, the middle-aged man in armor had retreated nearly 10 meters away, leaving 2 deep grooves on the ground. However, everyone was not interested in these, and they all focused their attention on the experimental armor. There were only some invisible collision marks on the armor, and no obvious damage. Senior, are you sure you didn't cheat and secretly control the bones to repair the damaged armor? Seeing this, the young jonin frowned and questioned. Their strengths were not much different, and the hardness of their bones would not be much different. It was incredible that they could withstand a set of Tsubaki dance without leaving any marks on the armor. Hearing this, the middle-aged man in armor rolled his eyes at him and then looked at Ryuze's position and said, "That adult is personally hosting the test. Who dares to cheat at this time? What's more, this is everyone's life-saving trick in the future. Cheating will hurt people." After saying that, he raised his feet and began to return to the center of the venue. Seeing the other party's serious face, the young jonin no longer dared to question. Not far away, Ryuze turned his head to look at the crowd and said with a smile, "One is not enough, then go up 2 more." As he said that, he nodded to the 2 jonin in the crowd again. "Thank you, sir." The 2 thanked him one after another and then jumped into the field with their hands rubbed. At this time, the middle-aged man in armor, who had just been beaten back, also walked back to the center of the open space. The 3 attack testers dispersed very tacitly and formed a triangle formation to surround him in the middle. This time, let's use willow dance to attack from 3 different directions at the same time. One of the attack testers suggested. No problem. The other 2 responded very readily and silently activated the corpse bone vein, each pulling out a bone spear from their shoulders. Compared with the various unexpected joint attacks of Tsubaki dance, the attack of willow dance is mainly reflected in the bone spear, and it is also easier to control and gather. Therefore, the destructive power of willow dance is more concentrated and more powerful. Then, after a short period of preparation, the 3 of them simultaneously launched an attack on the armor wearer in the middle. Willow dance, willow dance, willow dance. The 3 of them waved their bone spears together, stabbing the target's armor again and again. Perhaps because they attacked from different angles, a strange balance was formed at this time. The 3 powerful forces sandwiched the armor wearer in the middle and could not move. He could only bear the powerful stabs of the bone spears again and again. Feeling the powerful fluctuations spread by the 3 forces, Ryuze couldn't help but feel excited. He widened his eyes and wanted to see their every move. Unfortunately, he was not strong enough. He could only see the after images of the 3 bone spears waving in the air, and then there were bursts of clanging sounds coming from the armor wearer. Soon, the attack of the 3 people was completely stopped, and the area with a radius of nearly 5 meters around the 4 of them was shattered by the power of their attacks, leaving cracks visible to the naked eye on the ground. Even at the place where the wearer of the armor was originally standing, there was no intact ground under his feet. It was completely shattered by the spreading force, and even the opponent's entire car sank into the ground. Liuze saw it and shouted, "That's senior, are you okay?" "No, I'm fine." The middle-aged man wearing the armor waved his hand and said palely, "It's just, I was beaten by the three of them just now. I couldn't catch my breath. It was really suffocating." As he said, he couldn't help but take a few deep breaths, and his face finally looked much better. After asking about the safety of the tester, Liuze turned his attention to the armor on the other party. Facing a more fierce attack, there were many dents on the armor, which were much more obvious than the dot marks just now. Of course, those were just dents, not any substantial damage. The defensive power of this set of armor can be seen. Unfortunately, this set of armor is not complete, and the overall structure's force unloading is also affected. If not, I wouldn't have been so uncomfortable being attacked by the three of them just now. The armor wearer, who had already caught his breath, added another sentence. After more than half a year of research, they found that this set of armor is not only gorgeous in appearance, but also has a great force unloading effect in its structure. This also led to them having to carefully verify the functions of those seemingly useless parts when simplifying the armor. If it is a purely decorative part, it can be removed directly, but if it has an auxiliary force unloading effect, it must be retained. It doesn't matter, as far as the current performance is concerned. I'm already very satisfied. Liuze nodded, feeling extremely happy. Then, he looked at the crowd outside the venue and smiled. The physical skills have been tested, and now I want to try ninjutsu. Please ask one of your clan members who can perform the 5 types of escape techniques of water, fire, earth, thunder, and wind to come out and test it. Hearing this, everyone present looked at each other in surprise. It is well known that their clan is good at physical skills. Even those who have not awakened the corpse vein are mostly based on physical skills, so there are not many people in the clan who focus on practicing ninjutsu. After a long discussion, a young man who was probably at the level of a chunin slowly walked out of the crowd and bowed to Liuze. "If you don't mind my low strength, then I will perform the fire escape." "Okay, you." Liuze didn't pick too much and nodded immediately. Then, he looked at Taketori Shinsuke next to him and said with a smile, "I remember that you, Shinsuke, seem to have mastered the change of water chakra properties. Why don't you go down and try it too?" He clearly remembered that when they retreated and were chased by Konoha from the sea, Taketori Shinsuke used the mist hidden technique to deal with the Uchiha Jonin. That is a water escape ninjutsu, and you must learn the change of water chakra properties to master it. Chapter 131 Testing the Armor, Part 2. Hearing this, Taketori Shinsuke shook his head and said with a smile, "Although I have mastered the change of water's properties, I rarely use it, and am not good at water-style ninjutsu. In fact, I chose to practice the change of water's properties in order to learn the mist hidden technique. With the cover of the mist hidden technique, we can get closer to the opponent more easily and better play our own physical advantage." As he said this, he couldn't help scratching his head. Liuze was also helpless after hearing this, but he didn't force it. In this case, I can only trouble Shinsuke Jonin to quickly notify other members of the clan who are good at ninjutsu to participate in the test of the armor. He whispered. "Yes, sir." Taketori Shinsuke responded, and then used the flash body technique to disappear on the spot. Then, Liuze looked at the field again and gestured to the young chunin. "It will take a while for the other ninjutsu testers to arrive. Now, please use the fire escape ninjutsu to test the armor's defense first." "No problem, Lord Liuze." The young chunin nodded and then turned to the middle-aged man in armor and began to make hand seals slowly. Soon, Liuze sensed that a clear chakra fluctuation spread from the young chunin. Fire escape dragon fire jutsu. Then, he took a deep breath and then spit out a hot column of flames, rushing forward with rolling heat waves and impact. Wherever he passed, the ground collapsed and turned into scorched earth. Seeing that the figure wearing armor was submerged in the fiery red waves of fire, the fire lasted for nearly 10 seconds. After 10 seconds, the young chunin could no longer hold on and had to stop. He sat down on the ground and gasped for breath. At this time, the front had been burned to scorched earth by the fierce fire just now, and the wearer of the armor was also forced back by the impact. Of course, in terms of impact force, this fire escape ninjutsu is not the strong point, so the repulsion distance is far less than the effect caused by the previous few physical skills. Its lethality lies in the burning of high temperature flames. Knowing this, Ryuze and everyone present focused their eyes on the scorched earth and the figure that had been burned black. "Senior, are you okay?" Ryuze shouted from a distance. "It's okay, it's okay." A familiar voice came from the blackened armor. Then, the middle-aged man silently activated the corpse bone vein and put away the excess bone armor on the surface of his body, revealing his resolute face again. Because the armor was not perfect, a considerable part of the limbs were still exposed. In order to resist the flames this time, he deliberately gave birth to bone armor and covered the rest. "Where is the armor? How is the armor damaged?" Ryuze asked again. Because the armor was burned a little black, and because of the distance, it was difficult for him to confirm the actual damage of the armor. Hearing this, the middle-aged man silently focused his attention and quickly checked the condition of the armor on his body. "It's okay, everything is normal. No damage," he responded excitedly after the inspection. In terms of lethality, ninjutsu is generally stronger than physical skills. Take the dragon fire technique used by the young tester just now. Although the opponent is only a chunin, the destructive power of this ninjutsu is no less than that of the previous jonin. But even in the face of such a ninjutsu attack, the armor on his body is still intact. This shows that this set of armor is also not weak in resistance to ninjutsu. "That's great." Ryuze was overjoyed, and everyone present was also very excited. Then, he looked at the young fellow who had just stood up and asked with a smile, "Do you have enough energy to try again?" "No." The other party shook his head with a bitter smile and said, "The dragon fire technique just now has consumed nearly half of my chakra. It is my strongest fire escape technique. Even this move is useless. There is no point in using fire escape to test it again." It's not that he doesn't want to, but he can't. "Okay then. Go down and have a good rest." Ryuze waved his hand and sent him away. At this time, Taketori Shinsuke came back, followed by 5 fellows, each of whom exuded a strong chakra fluctuation. "My lord, these other fellow ninjas who are good at using ninjutsu that you asked for." Taketori Shinsuke pointed at the few people behind him and introduced them to Ryuze. "Hello, my lord." Several people also bowed their heads and saluted. "Okay, I won't say anything extra. I believe that all the ninjas know why I summoned you. Go and try it now. Everyone can't wait." Ryuze gestured and glanced at the middle-aged man wearing armor on the battlefield. "Yes." Several people responded and then jumped into the field. Seeing the scorched earth on the ground and the somewhat blackened armor, one of the women came out and said, "Although someone has just tested it with fire style, I still want to try it again this time. Does anyone want to compete with me for the first test order?" As she said that, she looked back at the other 4 people of the same clan. The 4 did not answer and stepped back and chose to default. It was just a matter of order. There was nothing to fight for, and it would be a turn sooner or later. In contrast, they wanted to see what kind of power this set of armor created by the power of the whole clan had. They had heard a long time ago that the clan was studying a kind of armor technique for shaping corpse veins, but because they themselves had not awakened the corpse veins, they did not pay much attention to it, and they were not qualified to participate in the research. However, when Taketori Shinsuke found them today and wanted them to participate in the armor test, they came without any hesitation. At this time, the female jonin who grabbed the priority of the first test quickly formed a seal and then launched an attack. Fire style, fire dragon bullet technique. She suddenly spit out a stream of flames and then turned into a several meter long dragon of flames and rushed forward. The middle-aged man wearing armor did not dare to neglect it and once again activated the bone armor to cover the exposed part of his body. In just a moment, he was once again in the sea of fire. But compared to the previous time, this time the flame attack was obviously more fierce. Even through the armor, he could still feel the terrifying pressure outside. Fortunately, the armor on his body still showed no signs of damage and was still as solid as a rock. If there was any possibility of breaking, he would immediately terminate the test and escape from this dangerous area. However, the bone armor on his body that was temporarily made to fill the blank area could not bear it, and cracks slowly appeared. Helplessly, he could only continue to activate the corpse bone vein to strengthen the thickness of the bone armor again, to resist the burning of the flames. However, the female ninja's fire style attack is not just that. Chapter 133, Testing the Armor, Part 2. Fire Style, Flame Cone. Under the control of the female Jonin, the fire dragon wrapped around the armor changed again, turning into a huge cone, piercing straight down towards the target below. Boom. With a loud noise, the entire ground shook, and then collapsed with the landing point as the center, and a terrifying wave of fire spread out. The people watching outside the field were watching intently, and had no defense at all. Many people were immediately blown away by the spreading fire wave, and only a few used chakra to desperately absorb the ground to stabilize their heels. With Liu's strength, he would naturally not be one of those few people, but with Taketori Shinsuke by his side to support him, he got help to stabilize his heels in time, so he didn't make a fool of himself. Without waiting for the fire wave to dissipate, he anxiously shouted to the center, "Senior, how are you?" The figure wearing the armor still stood, but the armor on his body had been burned twice by the fire style, and it became a little darker. If he could not sense the life fluctuations in the armor, he almost thought that the senior who was responsible for the armor test had been burned to charcoal. Then, the mask on the armor shattered, revealing a familiar middle-aged male face. He smiled and waved to Liuze and said, "I'm fine. However, the armor has some slight cracks due to the high temperature." Then, "Can we continue the test?" Liuze thought for a while and asked. "No problem. There will be no impact." The middle-aged tester was full of confidence. Although the armor had been burned and cracked, it was only on the surface. It had little effect on the overall defense of the armor, and it was only slightly damaged. Then, he turned around and gestured to the remaining 4 ninjutsu type jonins. "No need to test one by one, just 4 of you at once. Are you sure?" The 4 were surprised. "Yes, I'm sure there is no problem." The middle-aged tester nodded. The bones made by his jonin strength are already hard, and it is extremely difficult for ninjutsu attacks of the same level to destroy it. Now, after a complex transformation, its bone density has been further improved, and its hardness is beyond words. Combined with the original special structure of the armor, to unload force and enhance defense, the defensibility of the whole set of armor has far exceeded his expectations. Especially in the fire attack of the jonin level just now, it has been verified that only the surface was burned and cracked. Based on this calculation, it is not a problem, even if it faces the ninjutsu attacks of multiple jonins at the same time. Of course, there will definitely be damage, but it will definitely not be too serious. When the whole set of armor is completely completed, it may be able to truly ignore the ninjutsu attacks of the general jonin level. After getting the affirmation, the 4 attack testers did not act rashly, but instead cast their eyes on Liuze over there. After all, they don't know the specific defense ability of the armor, and don't want to accidentally kill their own people. Since that senior has already said so, then everyone doesn't have to hold back. Attack with all your strength. Seeing this, Liuze also gave affirmation. Yes. The 4 responded, and then lined up, and stood in front of the middle-aged man who tested the armor. Then, they all began to form seals at the same time, silently mobilizing chakra, and 4 powerful waves brewed and spread out. Finally, at a certain moment, the 4 were ready, and launched an attack together. Water style, water blade / earth style, earth rift thorn wind style, vacuum wave lightning style, lightning wave. In an instant, the 4 styles of escape techniques materialized at the same time, turning into water knives, earth thorns, wind blades, and lightning waves, and all rushed towards the target middle-aged man. Although the wearer of the armor had been prepared and used chakra to firmly absorb the surface of the ground, he still couldn't resist the impact of the 4 jonin level ninjutsu at the same time, and was immediately blown away. Boom. With a loud bang, he landed on a residential building not far away and smashed the whole house. "Quick, go and see what's going on," Liuze anxiously told Taketori Shinsuke beside him. Although the senior who tested the armor was very confident, it was still difficult for him to rest assured without actually seeing the results. After receiving the order, Taketori Shinsu crushed out immediately. Soon, he and a figure wearing armor came out of the ruins of the residential buildings one after another. Wow. Instantly, everyone present couldn't help but cheer loudly. Although it was still a little far away, everyone could still see that there was no obvious damage on the armor. In other words, facing the ninjutsu attacks of 4 jonin at the same time, the tester was intact. More importantly, judging from this situation, the armor has not reached its limit and can withstand a lot of attacks. Once this set of armor is completely completed, its defense is simply unimaginable. Looking at the middle-aged man wearing armor who was walking towards him like a winner, Ryuze couldn't wait to ask, "How do you feel? How many more can you hold on?" "It feels very good." The middle-aged man clenched his fists and replied excitedly, "I feel that this level of attack should be able to hold on for more than 30 times. Hearing this, Ryuze focused his attention on the armor on the other party. Perhaps because the attacks of the 4 attackers were too concentrated, several cracks had appeared on the chest armor. However, the tester was not injured, and it seems that the cracks have not completely penetrated the armor. It's a pity that it is still not completely immune to this level of ninjutsu attack. He sighed softly. The current armor also has extraordinary defensive capabilities, but it is not completely immune to the ninjutsu of ordinary jonin, which means that it will be broken. And once this broken attack accumulates to a certain level, their armor will still be destroyed, and it has not reached the point he wants. Seeing the armor put away, the middle-aged man smiled and said, "Don't be disappointed, sir. I think when the whole set of armor is completed, the armor's defensive ability will definitely be improved. I think by that time, it should be able to ignore this level of ninjutsu." Just what? Seeing that he suddenly hesitated, Ryuze asked curiously. The middle-aged man put away his smile and said seriously, "Just to perform this set of half-finished armor techniques, I consumed nearly 1/3 of my chakra. When the technique is completely completed, the chakra consumption will definitely increase further. By then, I'm afraid only the jonin level can practice this move." Ryuze smiled bitterly and said, "Pros have cons. There are not so many perfect things in the world. However, my Taketori clan focuses on physical skills. As long as we don't perform some special secret techniques, the consumption of chakra in battle will not be particularly large. This shortcoming is not a problem. It's just that my fellow clansmen at the level of Chunin and Genin may not be able to use this trick." At this point, he couldn't help but sigh. Chapter 133, The Surprise Appearance of the Sky Ninja. Just like the Dance of Early Ferns that Ryuze had been thinking about before, this set of armor techniques is destined to not become a trick that all the tribe members can master. At this time, the 5 ninjutsu type jonins who participated in the test also came over. "Congratulations, sir, for creating such a powerful defensive technique for the tribe. The strength of the Taketori tribe must be taken to a high level." Several people congratulated in unison. "No, this is not the credit of me alone. It is the result of everyone's hard work," Ryuze replied with a smile. "If it weren't for the power of this tribe, he would not know when he would be able to complete it if he studied it alone. It's just, sir, don't you think you are too partial to one over the other?" the female jonin who used the fire escape asked with a hint of dissatisfaction. Hearing this, the other 4 people cast surprised and angry eyes. Although they also had this idea, they never thought that their companion would be so bold to say it directly to his face. "What did you say?" Ryuze was stunned for a moment, very puzzled. The female jonin said seriously, "The set of armor techniques developed by your lord is indeed very powerful, but only those of our clan who have awakened the corpse bone veins can use it, and they have to reach the level of jonin. You know, only 1/3 of the clan have awakened the corpse bone veins. Doesn't your lordship's set of techniques only allow only a small number of people to learn and use it? Then what about the rest of the people? Especially for those of us who have not awakened the corpse bone veins at all. Isn't it a bit unfair? It would be fine if Ryuze alone created this technique independently, but it is really hard to feel calm when the whole clan gathered their strength to create something that only a small number of people can master. So, that's what you're talking about, senior." Ryuze shook his head and laughed, patiently explaining, "In fact, In addition to developing this set of armor techniques, I also prepared a set of techniques with wider applicability. It's called chakra mode, which uses chakra as a basis to build a defensive coat, which can achieve an effect similar to the transformation of a Jinkriki into a tailed beast. However, my clan's ability is limited, so I gave this research and development plan to Meditarumi. When they develop the results, we can also get a share of the profits. Everyone, please stop saying that I'm partial. Hearing this, everyone present immediately talked about it. If it is true as Lius said, once the chakra mode is successfully developed, it will no longer be restricted by the corpse vein, and everyone will be qualified to learn it. However, not everyone completely believes this. My lord, you are not deliberately saying nice things to perfunctorious, are you? The female Jonin frowned and confirmed. No, it should be true. Another middle-aged man in charge of the ninjutsu test stretched out his hand to block her and said seriously, I met a friend in the Terumi Mei clan. I heard from that friend that Terumi Mei has mobilized a lot of Miss Ninjas who are good at chakra form changes to study a technique, which seems to be called chakra mode. It is said that once this technique is successfully developed, it can give people a defensive ability comparable to that of a Jinkriki's tailed beast. I thought this was an idea proposed by their own people, but I didn't expect it to come from Lord Rokuze. Hearing this, the people present were originally a little skeptical, but immediately no longer had any doubts. At this time, an intelligence officer hurriedly squeezed into the crowd. Report to the Lord, here is important information. The man handed a letter to Rokuze. Important information? Rokuze was a little surprised, and immediately took the letter and quickly opened it. It was not until then that he realized that it was a handwritten letter from Terumi Mei. Agent Taketori, our intelligence personnel have found out that a remnant of the air ninja is entrenched on a small island in the southeast, preparing to secede and restore the country. In order to stabilize the rear, I decided to send a ninja unit to encircle and suppress it, hoping to transfer 100 ninjas from the Taketori clan for support. The departure time is 3 hours later. After reading the letter, Lius immediately handed it to Taketori Shinsuke next to him, and instructed, go and transfer 100 ninjas to prepare for the battle immediately. After taking the letter and quickly browsing it, Taketori Shinsuke nodded immediately. No problem, I'll go down and prepare. Wait. Lius hurriedly stopped him and said, don't worry, maybe we can use this action as an experiment. As he said that, his eyes had already fallen on the middle-aged man who had been wearing the armor for testing. Senior, I want to take this set of semi-finished armor to the battlefield for actual testing. What do you think? He asked the middle-aged man with a smile. Tested on the battlefield? The middle-aged man was stunned for a moment. Actual combat is completely different from the rigid test just now. There are too many uncertain factors on the battlefield. Maybe a detonating talisman will suddenly fall on their feet, which will greatly test the overall effect of their armor. However, as one of the developers of this armor technique, he can't wait to see what effect this armor can play in actual combat. No problem. After weighing the pros and cons, he nodded and said seriously, although our armor is still a semi-finished product, it can also greatly improve the user's protection ability, far better than the normal state. Lius smiled and said, in this case, please select another 20 ninjas who have awakened the corpse vein, and teach them this semi-finished armor technique. 3 hours later, we will gather outside the ancestral hall, and prepare to set off. Yes. The middle-aged man responded, and then turned around excitedly, to find the experimental target. Then, Lius turned his head, and said to his confidant beside him, Jinsuke Jonin, now you go, and select another 80 people from the same clan to make up the number for preparations. Yes. Taketori Shinsuke responded and disappeared on the spot. 3 hours later, 100 people gathered outside the ancestral hall of the Taketori clan. Looking at the people below, young and old, tall and short, Lius nodded secretly. There are Jonin, Chunin, and Genin inside, not the kind of pure elite cutting-edge troops. He is very satisfied with such a team configuration. And the reason for sending Genin is not to fill the numbers in perfunctory Terumi Mei. Because fighting is a process that all Genin must go through, and only in actual combat can they thrive. Just relying on stable training, they will never be able to step into a higher level. In the end, they can only become flowers in a greenhouse, unable to withstand the ravages of wind and rain. Okay, let's go. After reviewing, Ryuze waved his hand and immediately took the lead to walk outside. Taketori Shinsuke was stunned for a moment, and then he seemed to understand something, and hurriedly caught up with him and stopped him. Sir, are you going to? Chapter 134. Joining together and setting off. Yes. Ryuze nodded, and said with a smile, if I don't go to the scene, how can I see the actual combat effect of these armor techniques? He turned around, and glanced at the test members in the team. What's more, I have been staying at home for nearly half a year. I'm really bored. You have to let me go out and move around. He added again. But the battlefield is dangerous. What if something unexpected happens? Taketori Shinsuke persuaded again. As the leader of a clan, he is destined not to go out and walk around at will. How can there be so many what ifs? Ryuze waved his hand and said again, aren't you still here? Could it be that you have no confidence in your abilities? In addition to watching the armor experiment and relaxing, he also wanted to enrich some practical experience. This is something that cannot be obtained by daily training alone. Although the moves used in actual combat are still the same as daily training, because actual combat will encounter various situations, it is extremely challenging for individuals to adapt to the situation, and self-adjustment must be made according to the actual situation. If you read completely according to the script, it will only end up with an unfortunate result. This is also what he lacks the most at present. Of course we have no problem. Taketori Shinsuke immediately became excited, and then he said with difficulty, but there is always a possibility of something happening. Don't worry too much. Ryuze patted his shoulder and comforted him. I can promise you that I will not go deep into the battlefield and just find someone to practice with on the periphery. In this way, you should be able to guarantee my safety. What's more, the scale of this battle will not be too small, and the enemy should not have the energy to deliberately target me. You still don't have to worry too much. Let's go. As he said, he bypassed Taketori Shinsuke and walked out with his tribe again. Seeing this, Taketori Shinsuke had no choice but to follow quickly. Originally, he did not plan to participate in this combat operation, but since Ryuze was going, he naturally could not fall behind. Soon, the group came to the city gate under the leadership of Ryuze. Ryuze saw from a distance that many ninjas had gathered outside the city gate and were waiting. At this time, King, who was waiting outside the city, also noticed Ryuze and his group. The deputy chief of the Taketori clan is so worried that he deliberately sent his clan members here. He joked to Ryuze with a smile. No. Ryuze waved his hand and replied with a smile. I also plan to join this combat operation. So I came together. You are going to? Hearing this, King was surprised and looked at Ryuze again. It seems that Ryuze is much stronger now than he was half a year ago, but he is only at the level of Chunin. With this level, he can barely protect himself on the battlefield. Logically speaking, as the deputy chief of the Taketori clan, he should not go to the front line casually. Seeing his doubts, Taketori Shinsuke explained with a wry smile, the master wants to test the new technique developed by the clan, and relax by the way. We really can't stop him, so we can only let him go. He didn't want Ryuze to go to the frontline battlefield from the bottom of his heart, but he couldn't resist and had to obey. Fortunately, the scale of the war was not large, and it should be no problem to deal with the declining air ninja. So that's how it is. King suddenly realized, and then said to Ryuze seriously, Deputy Taketori, although you are of noble status, I still have to tell you in advance. For this combat operation, Lady Terumi Mei has appointed me as the commander-in-chief, and I will never allow you to interfere in any way. Otherwise, go back to where you came from. Taketori Ryuze is not an ordinary person, and he is also one of the most powerful figures in the reform faction. He is very worried that this person will use his power to suppress others on the battlefield and compete with him for the command of the battlefield. After all, the battlefield is not a place where you can play casually. If you are not careful, people will die. Especially as a commander, his command is related to the lives of countless people, and he must not be careless. If Taketori Rokuze cannot abide by the law, then he can only advise him to go home, or report to Lady Terumi Mei and let that person deal with the current situation. Don't worry. Rokuze nodded and said seriously, I will definitely respect the command of King Jonin, and will never interfere. Seeing that the other party was so sensible, King's face looked much better. In that case, please get in line, and get ready to go. He smiled and invited Rokuze and his party to join the team. Thank you. Rokuze and his party immediately joined the team, and ran southeast under the leadership of King. Soon, they arrived at the seaside pier, boarded a large ship, and continued to move towards the deep sea. Rokuze did not lie in the cabin to rest like the others, but found King who was on the deck looking into the distance. Although I already know that the target of this battle is the air ninja, I don't know the specific situation of the air ninja. Can King Jonin explain it to me? He asked with a smile. No problem. King looked back at him, pointed to the distance and said, according to our investigation, it will take about 2 days of sailing from here to the island occupied by the Sky Ninja. They have about 800 people, and they are good at using a kind of scientific ninja tool that can glide, and then use the air advantage, to cooperate with other scientific ninja tools, to carry out ground attacks. But, before he finished speaking, Rokuze interrupted him, and said with a smile, I still know their abilities. Once they fall to the ground, their combat effectiveness will be extremely low. So, I'm not worried about the victory of this battle. What I want to know is whether their leader Shen is among them. King was stunned for a moment, then came back to his senses and smiled. It turns out that the Taketori proxy also knows Shen. I just don't know why the Taketori proxy is interested in him. Rokuze did not hide it, lying on the side of the ship, looking at the sea below and slowly said, in addition to being the leader of the Sky Ninja, that guy is also an extremely skilled medical ninja. In the past, Orochimaru also discussed human body research with him. I think if he is there, maybe we can send someone to steal some human body research data from him. To help the Taketori clan's internal research on the corpse vein. A skilled medical ninja must have a lot of human body data in his hands. Although these data are not enough to help the Taketori clan directly solve the defects of the corpse vein, they will definitely help their research go further. So that's how it is. King thought for a while and slowly replied, according to the frontline investigation, Shen is also there, but he has been hiding inside the ship and rarely shows up. I heard that he seems to be researching something. Chapter 135, Shen Zero Tail. Hearing this, Rokuze seemed to be thinking about something, and then asked, are they searching for the whereabouts of the six-tailed Jinchuriki who has defected from Kirigakure? Oh, yes. King nodded repeatedly, and said in surprise, how did the Taketori agent know this? The other party just said that he didn't know the situation, but this time he even told the movements of the air ninja. I also deduced it, based on the information I already have. Rokuze pointed to his brain and said, in the previous life, Shen led the air ninja to attack Konoha. You should know about this, right? Yes, I heard about it. King nodded, and then said, it is said that the arrogant guy wanted to destroy the 5 major ninja villages with one blow. But in the end, I heard that it was destroyed by a team of less than 10 people from Konoha village. It's ridiculous. As he said this, he couldn't help shaking his head. It is simply a fantasy, and overestimating one's own abilities, to want to fight against the 5 major ninja villages with just this kind of strength. Rokuze sighed and patiently explained, you only know the general idea, not the real details. The guy named Shen is extremely talented. He comprehended yin yang escaped by himself, and then created a monster named Zero Tail. Zero Tail? King frowned after hearing this. Because this name is too special. There are a total of 9-tailed beasts in the entire ninja world. Everyone calls them one-tailed, two-tailed, 9-tailed according to the number of their tails. And Shen deliberately named the monster he created Zero Tail, which is obviously not random. Seeing the change in King's expression, Rokuze nodded and said, as you guessed, that monster was created to imitate the tailed beast. It's just that chakra energy cannot be created out of thin air. The Zero Tail he created is just a living tool that can accommodate a large amount of chakra. If you want to turn the zero tail into a real tailed beast so that you can control it freely, you have to replenish it with enough chakra. And once the zero tail has enough chakra, it will be easy for him to do anything. In this ninja world, chakra energy is the basis of everything. Without chakra, it is very inconvenient to do anything. King suddenly realized, so, his purpose in attacking Konoha in his previous life should be to find the 9 tails and replenish the chakra for the zero tail. And now, he is searching for the whereabouts of the 6 tails in our water country for the same purpose. Because the Kirigakure split, we have become his easiest target. Nothing is a better source of chakra than the tailed beast. The other party's purpose of searching for the trace of the 6 tails is clear at a glance. Yes, that's it. Ryuze nodded and continued. In addition, because that guy is proficient in human body research, he has also created a unique method to open the potential of the 8 gates. Although it is not as good as Konoha's 8 gates of Dungia, it is still very powerful and can be compared to the strong of the cage. There are 8 gates in the human body, and the 8 gates naturally limit the use of the human body's own power. Once all the 8 gates are opened, you can master all your potential. In other words, it is the power obtained by overdrawing physical strength or even life. But this natural limitation is actually a protection for the human body. Too much power will exceed what the human body can bear and endanger itself. Therefore, this natural limitation is extremely difficult to break. Because of this, the entire ninja world is not very interested in the study of the 8 gates, so there are very few examples of the real research on the use of the 8 gates. As far as Ryuze knows, in addition to the 8 gates of Dungia created by someone unknown in Konoha, only Shannon has done this. Another existence that can use the 8 gates. That's really troublesome. King couldn't help but sigh heavily. Apart from Konoha, I'm afraid only their Kirigakure knows the most about the 8 gates. Of course, they didn't gain understanding by studying the 8 gates, but because they suffered from the 8 gates ninja and understood this thing from the perspective of the victim. In the previous life, Kirigakure had formulated a plan for the 7 ninja swordsmen to bypass the frontline battlefield and launch a surprise attack on Konoha. Originally, Konoha's main force had almost been deployed at that time, and with the strength of the 7 ninja swordsmen, there was a great deal of confidence that Konoha could be destroyed in one fell swoop. However, man's plans are not as good as God's plans. The 7 ninja swordsmen met a genin named Might Day outside Konoha village. It happened that the genin had also mastered the 8 gates ninja, and after opening the 8 gates, he fought a life and death battle with the 7 ninja swordsmen. In the end, 4 ninja swordsmen died on the spot, and the other 3 were able to escape successfully because the opponent died of exhaustion. It was also because of that battle that the hidden mist village realized how terrible the power would be if the 8 gates were opened together. Seeing the commander-in-chief's face was solemn, Ryuze hurriedly comforted him. Don't worry too much, Ao Jonin. As far as I know, Shannon needs to rely on the special chakra provided by the Zero Tail to open the 8 gates. If there is no special chakra supply from the Zero Tail, his fate of opening the 8 gates rashly will be the same as that of Might Day, and that person is more cherishing his life. When the Zero Tail does not get enough chakra, he will definitely not fight us to the death. No matter what method is used to open the 8 gates, the essence of their power will not change, and it is all an overdraft of their own potential. In order to avoid this, Shannon creatively used the power of the Zero Tail to replenish his own consumption. It must be said that he is really a genius. No wonder Orochimaru studied the human body with him. Ryuze even speculated that the other party created the Zero Tail in addition to preparing to use it in war. Another purpose should be to make up for the loss of using the 8 gates. That's good, that's good. After being comforted, Ao secretly breathed a sigh of relief. By the way, the scientific ninja tools of the air ninjas reminded me of many things. I wonder what the Taketori agent thinks of these things? He turned around and asked Ryuze. Ryuze thought for a moment and said seriously, that is a very convenient thing that can greatly improve the overall strength of the ninja in a short period of time. When a ninja uses ninjutsu, he needs to mobilize chakra for transformation, and it is even affected by many factors such as his own talent and chakra amount. But if you use scientific ninja tools, you can easily avoid these difficulties. However, because it is too convenient, it is easy for people to become dependent on it and then completely abandon their own training. Liuze commented again. It's just like they use calculators to do math problems. Once you get used to using a more convenient calculator to calculate, your personal calculation ability will be abandoned and decline sharply. When you can't use a calculator, such as a math test, it will become a disaster. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 136. First meeting with Sora Ninja. Yes, scientific ninja tools are so convenient. King also sighed and said in a complicated way, I originally proposed to Lady Terumi Mei that strengthening the research and development of scientific ninja tools and then popularizing their application can improve the overall strength of ninjas in a short period of time. Originally, Lady Terumi Mei was a little tempted, but after seeing the current situation of the air ninja, Master Yuanshi appeared and rejected my proposal, so Lady Terumi Mei put it aside. As the elder of the former Kirigakure, Master Yuanshi has an extraordinary status, and even Terumi Mei cannot ignore the speech of that person. Although the air ninjas have gained good air combat power with aircraft and other weapons, their scientific ninja tools are too convenient, which makes them too dependent and almost completely give up their own training. This also leads to the low basic level of the air ninjas. Without scientific ninja tools, their combat power is mostly only at the level of genin. And the former air ninja country will be destroyed, and a large part of the reason lies in this. Master Yuanshi's concerns are not without reason. Looking at the sea in the distance, Liu sighed lightly and said, however, I don't think we can completely resist the use of scientific ninja tools, just because of our concerns. Because scientific ninja tools can really improve our strength, especially the strength of the lower level ninjas. This is a good thing for a force. As for the hidden dangers that Master Yuanshi is worried about, we can prevent them by correctly guiding and restricting everyone's use of scientific ninja tools. Why not wait until this battle is over? We will bring back the spoils of the air ninjas, and then persuade them patiently. Maybe we can make that elder change his mind. As he said that, he turned around and looked at King. That's right. Bringing back the spoils of the air ninjas and letting that elder see the effect of scientific ninja tools in person may be more convincing than pale words. King's eyes lit up immediately. That's right. Liuze turned around, leaned against the side of the ship, looked at the young man in front of him and said, I remember that after the 4th Ninja World War in my previous life, you left Kirigakure and joined the Aka organization. How much do you know about that organization? The so-called Aka organization is actually an organization created by the half-dead Otsutsuki Aishiki to serve himself and recycle the chakra fruit. However, due to some special reasons, Liuze only knew the existence of this organization and did not know more specific details. I didn't expect that you even knew this. King was very surprised and then shook his head and said, in my previous life, I was only an outer member of Aka and did not enter their core. In addition, their organizational structure is strict and it is a single line connection. So far, I only know the few people I have contacted. It's difficult for me to tell you more about the situation. I see. Liuze nodded, a little disappointed. I thought I could get some useful information from King, but I didn't expect that the other party didn't know as much as I did. Then, he smiled and joked to King, there is one thing I'm curious about. How did you, who once left Kirigakure to join the Kara organization, get Lady Terumi Mei to accept you again? In his previous life, King finally revealed his identity in front of the Konoha ninja, which meant that the news was leaked. With Kirigakure's intelligence capabilities, it was impossible for them not to find out. Hey, don't say that, young man. King was nervous and hurriedly explained, although I once left Kirigakure and joined the Kara organization, I have never betrayed Kirigakure, let alone done anything bad to Kirigakure. At most, I was hired by them and did some bounty missions. In his previous life, during the 4th Shinobi World War, he was seriously injured and completely disabled, and his life was once confused. It was under such circumstances that he left Kirigakure, wandered around the continent, and then accidentally joined the Kara organization. In fact, there was no conflict between him and Kirigakure at all, so he never defected. I see. Liuze nodded. No wonder Terumi was so confident to keep this person by her side as a confidant again. It turned out that the other party had never betrayed her. Then, after another exchange, Liuze left the deck and returned to the cabin to rest. After 2 days of turbulence on the sea, the group was about to enter the battle site. At this moment, Liuze on the deck noticed that in the distant sky, a black spot that was originally cruising suddenly flew towards them rapidly. Before he could ask, the perception type ninja in charge of vigilance on the ship immediately issued a warning. Be careful, there is chakra fluctuation on the black spot in the sky. It is likely to be a scout of the air ninja. Although the distance is far, their super perception can still sense the chakra fluctuation on the black spot. Upon hearing this, King, who was in charge of command, immediately issued an order. All ninjutsu type ninjas, prepare, wait until he approaches, shoot him down as soon as possible, and don't give them the opportunity to go back and report the news. The air ninja has great mobility in the sky. If they are discovered by the enemy in advance, it means that they will face endless air attacks from the enemy in this vast ocean. This is a very disadvantageous situation for them, because most ninjas can't fly. Even if they have ninjutsu to perform long-range attacks, but they can't fly, they can only let others come and go freely. Hearing this, many Miss Ninjas on the deck formed seals and brewed ninjutsu, and even the Taketori clan, who were not good at ninjutsu, prepared the 10-finger piercing bullet. However, in order to prevent the target from being alerted, everyone did not stand on the deck in a big way. Instead, they pulled up the canvas and almost covered the entire deck. Only a few people were left outside. Just wait for the opponent to get close and launch a surprise attack. Soon, as the black spot approached rapidly, Luz, who did not hide his figure, slowly saw that it was a figure, a person wearing a strange flying ninja tool. Although he couldn't see the other party's forehead protector clearly, he had confirmed the other party's identity: air ninja. Because in this sea area, only air ninjas can fly. However, compared to the air ninja who came to investigate, he could not confirm the identity of the people on the deck. He needed to lower the altitude and get closer to investigate carefully. However, as the flight altitude decreased, the distance between the two sides became closer and closer. He saw the familiar clothes on Luz and others, and even sensed the chakra fluctuations that were faintly spreading on the ship. Oh no, it's the Miss Ninja. He was startled and hurriedly began to turn and increase the flight altitude to try to distance himself. However, he understood it too late. Attack. Seeing that the enemy was about to escape, King immediately gave the order to attack. Chapter 137 Begin action. Water style. Water dragon bullet technique. As King injected chakra into the sea, a huge water dragon made of seawater took shape and fiercely pounced towards the air ninja in midair. Even Liu shot out the bone cones from his 10 fingertips to contribute his only strength. In addition to them, there were more ninjas who lifted the covering canvas and released their long-prepared ninjutsu for long-range attacks. The fleeing air ninja relied on his flexible flying ability to avoid the joint attack of King and others who attacked first, but he could no longer avoid the overwhelming ninjutsu offensive of more Miss Ninjas under the canvas. He only heard a scream, and then he was drowned by countless ninjutsu torrents, and finally fell into the sea and disappeared. There was no time to waste to search for the body of the man, because King knew very well that the possibility of survival was almost zero after suffering so many ninjutsu bombardments. However, he knew that with the disappearance of the scouting air ninja, the air ninja ship would send more air ninjas to patrol if they did not receive a response for a long time. By then, their tracks would no longer be hidden. If they wanted to win this combat operation and minimize their own losses, they should take this opportunity to catch their opponents off guard. Then, King made arrangements and commanded, "The ship is moving at full speed. All sensory ninjas concentrate their attention and expand the sensing range to the maximum. Once they find the enemy, report immediately." Yes. Everyone responded and began to take their positions. The sea ship, which was originally a bit slow, began to speed up with the help of ninjutsu. As they went deeper into the sea area, controlled by the enemy. They met more and more patrolling air ninjas on the road, and they were getting more and more frequent. Finally, after killing the 11th air ninja, the sensory ninjas came to King one after another. Report to Lord King, I found the target island and air ninja ship 7 kilometers away. Report, me too. The other sensory ninjas also reported the same news. Very good. King nodded and said to himself, at this distance, we can wade and launch a surprise attack. There is no need to continue to take the boat. The distance of nearly 7 kilometers is not close, but it is not a problem for the physical strength of the ninja. Moreover, the ship is too large. If they continue to move forward, they will be easily discovered by the enemy. But if they abandon the ship, it will be different. They dived into the water, leaving only their heads above the water, while the air ninjas were flying in the air. Unless they deliberately lowered their flight altitude, it would be almost impossible to find them. In this way, they will definitely catch the enemy off guard. Then, he looked at the 4 team leaders behind him. On the way to the boat, he had divided the team of nearly 500 people into 5 teams of 100 people. In addition to him leading the first team as the captain, he also appointed an additional captain for each team. He carefully assigned tasks to the 4 teams and said, Team 1 and Team 2 will dive and set off to attack the air ninja ships. Don't seek to kill or injure the enemy, but be sure to destroy the catapult launch devices on their ships as much as possible. After their investigation during this period of time, they found that the flying ninja tools of the air ninjas were not perfect and required a certain amount of acceleration to fly. Therefore, many catapult launch devices were installed on the large air ninja ships. Once those catapult devices were destroyed, it meant that the air ninjas still on the ground would never fly again and could only be slaughtered by them. Team 3, Team 4, and Team 5 will dive to the island and destroy the new base of the air ninjas. Try to kill every air ninja. He turned to look at the remaining 3 team leaders. Yes. Everyone responded without any objection. Then the 5 team leaders began to act and took their team members to go to the sea. Soon, except for the crew members who were left to guard the sea ship, almost everyone went into the water. Liuze followed the 5th team and also swam hard in the sea. Originally, with his status, he could have fought for a position as a team leader, but his own strength was not enough. Although he could convince his own clan, it had no effect on ninjas other than the Taketori clan. Others valued strength more. After all, this was a battle on the battlefield, not a child's game, and they would not allow a young man of the level of a Chunin to lead them. Fortunately, Liuze also knew this problem, so he did not deliberately fight for anything, avoiding embarrassment, and just silently let others arrange the assignment. King Jian was very moved, and originally wanted to arrange a position for a team leader for Taketori Shinsuke, but unfortunately he was rejected on the grounds that he needed to protect Liuze's safety. At this time, Taketori Shinsuke in the sea was still tirelessly admonishing Liuze again. Sir, after the battle starts, don't stay too far away from me. Otherwise, I'm afraid I won't be able to rescue in time. It's okay, aren't there 6 others? Liuze looked around. He could see that his 6 guards were centering around him, protecting him in the middle, and swimming forward silently at a constant speed. There are too many accidents on the battlefield. It is possible that the 6 of them will not be able to come to support in time. Taketori Shinsuke said with a wry smile. If possible, he would rather Liuze stay on the boat to take charge of the guard, but with Liuze's current attitude, it is impossible. Oh, okay, I remember it. Liuze had no choice but to temporarily agree. Similar words have been said countless times by the other party on the road in the past 2 days, and his ears are almost calloused. Seeing that the battle was about to begin, he really didn't have the mood to continue nagging with this person to distract his attention. Seeing this, Taketori Shinsuke didn't say anything else and could only silently follow him and continue to swim forward. Because of the assistance of chakra, everyone swam very fast in the water, far faster than ordinary people. Moreover, because they sank their bodies in the water, only their heads were exposed above the water, and the occasional patrolling air ninjas flying over them did not notice them at all. About 20 minutes later, they approached the island very smoothly and found a steep cliff to start going ashore. The reason for choosing such a location is that such a steep place is not suitable for ships to dock. Generally, there are few people, and it is not easy to be discovered. On the other hand, they are all ninjas, and they can walk through mountains and rivers, as if they were walking on flat ground. Such steep cliffs are not a problem at all. Soon, they all landed on the island smoothly, and took advantage of the dense jungle on the island, to move forward at full speed into the depths of the island. According to the investigation of intelligence personnel, the air ninjas have occupied a small town in the center of the island as a base, and have arranged a lot of people to stay there to guard it. And that place is also their key cleanup target. Chapter 138, Fighting in the Mist, Part 1. Seeing that they were still nearly 200 meters away from the town, everyone stopped at the same time. Because some of the vegetation near the town had been cut down, there would be no vegetation to cover their whereabouts if they continued forward. Moreover, there were still many air ninjas hovering in the sky, and they would be discovered as soon as they walked out of the jungle. Not only that, everyone also found that there was a very majestic tower standing in the center of the town, and occasionally they could see air ninjas taking off from the tower and rising into the sky. Obviously, there was a new takeoff device built by the air ninjas there. We must destroy their takeoff device as soon as possible, otherwise we will be in trouble. The captain of the third team said to the other two captains. Yes. The other two captains had no objection. The captain of the fourth team immediately proposed, I suggest that everyone collectively release the mist hidden technique to cover the enemy's vision and perception, and then send an elite team to quickly advance and destroy their takeoff device as quickly as possible. In this way, there will be no suspense about the outcome of this battle. The basic ability level of the air ninjas is relatively low. Although they have convenient scientific ninja tools, after losing air superiority, they are just a group of weak chickens on the ground. Okay. The captain of the third team nodded and said, our three teams will attack from 3 different directions, and each team will send out an elite team of 10 people to carry out the task of destroying the air ninjas takeoff device at the same time. Faced with such a proposal, the other 2 team leaders naturally had no objection, and then led their respective teams to carefully shuttle through the jungle and adjust the direction of attack. Eliuser was not very lucky. His 5th team was responsible for the frontal attack. Because the front was the entrance and exit of the town, it was also the most heavily guarded side by the enemy. This also meant that the resistance they would encounter in their attack would be greater than other places. However, it was just that the resistance was a little great. After all, their enemies were only air ninjas, not ninjas from other large ninja villages. For such a war, all the mist ninjas present were full of confidence. Just as Eliuser and others were preparing to launch an attack, bursts of explosions suddenly came from a distance. Why are the other 2 teams so eager to take action when there is no fog yet? A genin not far from Eliuser was a little surprised. He could see that there was no fog in the town, which was not in line with the plans of the 3 captains. No, that's not right. Eliuser shook his head and whispered, it's not the other 2 teams, it's the other 2 teams that attacked the air ninja ships at sea. The roar of the explosion was obviously far away, and it didn't seem to come from near the town. At the same time, after hearing such a roar, the air ninjas hovering in the air immediately saw the billowing smoke on the ships at sea with the advantage of being high above. Oh no, someone is attacking our ships. Hurry up and support. The air ninjas in the air shouted a warning, and flew quickly towards the direction of the ships. Seeing this situation, the captains of the 3 teams also decisively issued orders. Go. If they let this group of air ninjas rush to support, their companions over there would inevitably be attacked in the abdomen. They couldn't waste any more time. Water style, mist hiding technique, water style, mist hiding technique, water style, mist hiding technique. In an instant, all the mist ninjas who mastered the mist hiding technique in the 3 teams cast spells, creating thick fogs, and under their deliberate guidance, controlled the fog to spread rapidly in all directions. Where did the fog come from? In the sky, many air ninjas who were about to rush to support noticed the sudden spread of fog on the ground. Seeing that the entire town was shrouded in fog, not a single bit could be seen. Although it is normal to have such a level of fog in the land of water, the fog in front of them this time appeared too strangely and too quickly, without any signs. This is obviously not a normal fog. Realizing this, a sky ninja seemed to understand something and immediately shouted at the top of his voice, "Oh no, it's the mist hiding technique of the mist hiding ninja. Be careful of sneak attacks." However, it would have been better if he hadn't shouted this, because when he suddenly shouted like this, many mist ninjas on the ground immediately locked onto his position. You know, in order to cooperate with the mist hidden technique to attack, most of them have specially carried out intensive training in listening to the sound and determining the position. Water style, water break wave wind style, vacuum wave lightning style, lightning light. In an instant, several ninjutsu rose into the air and accurately hit the air ninja who shouted the warning in the sky. He didn't even have time to react before he was hit by countless ninjutsu and died. After receiving his reminder, many air ninjas finally reacted. Be careful of sneak attacks, the mist hidden ninja is coming. Be careful, many air ninjas once again warned their companions, but they were too anxious and didn't know how much danger this would bring to them. The mist ninjas locked their positions again, based on the sound, and then used ninjutsu to attack again, and many air ninjas died. After more than a dozen people died in a row, finally an air ninja reacted. Don't talk casually, they can lock our position with the sound. In addition, companions who have already taken off, please increase the altitude immediately. You can get out of the thick fog and avoid their ninjutsu attacks. He flew to a high place and loudly reminded his companions below. Although ninjutsu has long-range attack capabilities, the distance is limited after all. Especially in the air, it is different from the ground. They can move up and down, left and right, which is more convenient than on the ground, and naturally easier to dodge. Moreover, as the flying altitude increases, and they get out of the thick fog, they can also clearly see the attacks below, which is more convenient for them to dodge. As he was talking, more than a dozen ninjutsu bombarded him in the thick fog below. He just stepped aside gently, and avoided the dozen ninjutsu attacks. At the same time, he also pulled out the weapon on his waist. It was a weapon similar to a hand cannon, driven by chakra as energy, and could easily shoot a compressed chakra energy bullet for shooting. After roughly locking the direction of the ninjutsu just now, he immediately injected chakra, and launched a counterattack. Swish. In an instant, several compressed macro energy bullets were fired and disappeared in the thick fog. Unfortunately, Liu's side had already taken advantage of the thick fog to launch an offensive, so it was impossible for them to stay where they were. In addition, the other side did not aim, but only shot, based on their feelings. Those compressed macro energy bullets were destined to not hit the mist ninjas who had just used ninjutsu to attack. Ta ta ta. There was only a slight sound, and most of the energy bullets fell on the open ground, making fist-sized holes. However, there was still a Chunin who was charging forward who was unlucky. He was hit by the attack from the sky and fell to the ground immediately. Fortunately, the macro energy bullet had limited lethality. Unless it hit the vital point, it was not enough to kill people. The unlucky Chunin glanced at the wound on his shoulder, then cheered up, got up again and charged. Chapter 139, Fighting in the Mist, Part 2. Reminded by his companions, the air ninjas who had already taken off immediately raised their flying height and roughly locked onto the area outside the town, dropping all the small bombs they were carrying. Boom. In an instant, explosions came one after another, and the entire town was shrouded in a bomb rain. Liu's luck was not very good, and a bomb the size of a grapefruit fell right in front of him. Oh no. He was startled, and hurriedly raised his arms to protect his vitals. Because of the inertia of the sprint, he had no time to stop and retreat, so he could only turn to the side and jump out, silently activating the corpse bone veins, stimulating bone spurs from all over his body. Taketori Shinsuke, who was following closely beside him, also saw several bone spurs spawned from his arms, like winding vines, and immediately wrapped up the bomb on the ground. Boom. Then, a dazzling flash of fire appeared, and the bomb exploded with a bang, and a powerful impact spread. Fortunately, Taketori Shinsuke had already wrapped it with his bone spurs in advance, weakening the impact of the explosion by nearly half. When the remaining aftermath hit Liu's, it had no killing power, and only shook Liu's body back a short distance. "Are you okay, sir?" Taketori Shinsuke asked anxiously without bothering to put away the bone spurs. It's okay, it's okay." Liu's climbed up, put away the bone spurs on his body, and said, "In fact, you don't have to be so nervous, as an advanced Jonin. Just this bomb will only leave me some scratches at most. Unless it falls directly on me, it will not cause a fatal threat. The killing power of those bombs is extremely limited, and with the distance and the cushioning of his bone spurs, he will definitely not have any accidents. It's always better to be careful." Taketori Shinsuke took back the surging bone spurs and replied slowly, "Okay, it's up to you." Ryuze shook his head and continued to rush forward. Although he couldn't see the situation ahead clearly due to the fog, he could roughly judge from his memory that he should be able to reach the entrance of the town in another 5 meters. At this time, the many mist ninjas who launched the attack had already started a battle with the sky ninjas who were responsible for the guard. There were bursts of roars coming from the thick fog in front. Although they lost their vision due to the thick fog, the sky ninjas still had chakra weapons and were not completely powerless to fight back. They relied on the protective wall and fired indiscriminately at the outside. In an instant, countless compressed macro energy bullets turned into a rainstorm and shot at the many mist ninjas who were charging. There was only a scream, and a large number of mist ninjas who rushed to the front fell down immediately. The thick fog blocked the enemy's sight, but it also blocked their sight and obscured the chakra fluctuations, which was not conducive to their timely detection of danger and avoidance. Therefore, facing the compressed energy bullets that were shot like a rainstorm, everyone was caught off guard. Fortunately, the compressed energy bomb, like the previous bomb, was not very lethal. Unless it hit a vital part, it would be difficult to kill someone. The injured people quickly got up and continued to charge forward, even using ninjutsu to clear the way and block the energy bombs in front of them. Ryuze was not good at using ninjutsu, and he did not master a few ninjutsu. He could only stimulate bone spurs on his body to block the energy bombs. Bang! Just as he ran forward for 2 steps, an energy bomb suddenly shot out from the thick fog in front of him and landed directly on him. Fortunately, he was not hit directly by the energy bomb because of the bone spurs. Even so, he was still stopped by the bombardment of the energy bomb just now, blocking another energy bomb shot from the front. Taketori Shinsuke asked with concern, "Sir, are you okay?" "No problem." Ryuze responded and continued to rush forward. Perhaps it was because the first group of mist ninjas had already entered the formation of the sky ninjas, seriously interfering with the sky ninjas' defense, and the energy bombs fired from the front gradually became sparse. After being hit by 3 more energy bombs, Ryuze finally arrived at the enemy's protective wall. He could not see the situation on the top of the wall due to the heavy fog, but he could clearly hear the anxious voices of many sky ninjas above. "Quick, quick, stop them. You must stop them." After taking a deep breath, Ryuze immediately used his chakra to absorb the wall, and then used his hands and feet to climb up gently like a gecko. He knew very well that the enemy was only 3 or 4 meters away from him. If he was not careful and attracted the enemy's attention in advance, he would be the unlucky one. Following closely behind him, Taketori Shinsuke also climbed up the wall together, ready to provide support at any time. As the distance between the 2 sides got closer and closer, Ryuze couldn't help holding his breath, and even his movements became lighter and lighter, for fear of being discovered by the enemy. When the 2 sides were only 1 meter apart, he used his hands and feet to suddenly jump up, and several bone spurs were generated from his arms and hands to attack. The air ninja who was aiming at the thick fog in front of him and shooting continuously did not expect that an attack would suddenly appear on the wall below him. He was caught off guard and was immediately pierced by the bone spurs, which made him feel cold all over. Ryuze also took this opportunity to flip onto the protective wall. What happened? Hearing the scream, the concerned voice of his companions came from not far away from the air ninja. Ryuze did not waste time and immediately put away the bone spurs and then rushed over following the sound. Because of the heavy fog, the visibility was less than 2 meters. The air ninjas could randomly shoot outside the protective wall, but they would never dare to do so on this protective wall. If they were not careful, they would accidentally hurt their own people. Hearing the hurried footsteps approaching, the air ninja who had just asked a question suddenly had a bad premonition and involuntarily aimed the chakra hand cannon in his hand in the direction of the footsteps. Then, he saw a figure suddenly rushing over from the other side of the thick fog, and as the figure gradually became clear, he also saw the wavy ninja forehead guard on the other side's head. It's a Kirigakure ninja. He was suddenly startled, and then instinctively fired a compressed energy bullet to attack. However, they relied too much on scientific ninja tools and their basic qualities were too poor. Ryuze, who reacted faster than his opponent, noticed the opponent's movements and evaded in advance the moment the opponent launched the attack. Whoosh! The compressed energy bullet flew past his ear and was easily dodged. What? The air ninja was shocked, and just as he wanted to continue shooting, Ryuze had already approached him. Goodbye. Ryuze gave birth to a bone spur from the palm of his hand and quickly pressed his palm on the opponent's chest. The man suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest, and then his whole body seemed to have no strength, and he collapsed involuntarily. Chapter 140, Fighting in the Mist, Part 2. After killing the enemy with one strike, Ryuze silently retracted the bone spur, and then continued to search forward along the protective wall. Soon, he met two more air ninjas. They were very scared, standing back to back, observing the thick fog around them very nervously. Seeing Ryuze suddenly rushing out of the thick fog, the one facing Ryuze immediately used the chakra hand cannon to attack without hesitation. Unfortunately, Ryuze had just seen this kind of weapon, so he had already prepared for it. He just quickly moved his body to the side and easily avoided the shooting. Before they could launch a second round of shooting, Ryuze took another step to the nearest person. Die. He spread out his left palm, aimed at the opponent's chest and abdomen and pushed forward, and silently activated the corpse bone vein. The man showed a look of horror, and obviously wanted to struggle and resist, but their poor basic quality level due to lack of training, was clearly revealed at this moment. The left hand that tried to resist, had not even been raised, and Ryuze's left palm had already pressed between his chest and abdomen. Poof! With a muffled sound of flesh being pierced by a sharp weapon, the air ninja facing Ryuze was immediately pierced by the bone spur. As for the one leaning on his back, it goes without saying. Because he was facing away from Ryuze, he had not even understood what was happening before he was pierced to death by the bone spur on Ryuze's left palm, along with his companion behind him. Seeing Ryuze retract the bloody bone spur, Taketori Shinsuke, who had just caught up, smiled and asked, "How does it feel to participate in a real battle that you haven't seen for a long time, sir?" "Not very good." Ryuze shook his head, looked at the corpses at his feet, and sighed. "They are too weak. I can't even muster much interest to deal with them. Because they rely too much on scientific ninja tools, the basic quality level of air ninjas is extremely poor. Although their comprehensive combat effectiveness is about the level of genin, in many aspects, especially in terms of enemy reaction and physical skills, they are not as good as genin. The only thing they are worse than genin is that they have convenient chakra hand cannons that can immediately carry out long-range attacks. Genin of the same level generally do not master too many ninjutsu, and most of them are mainly physical attacks. Before getting close, they are likely to be killed by their chakra hand cannons directly, and there is no chance to get close. With such a weak opponent, Ryuze can hardly learn too much useful combat experience from them. It is just a one-sided massacre. At this moment, a violent explosion suddenly came from the depths of the thick fog. Boom boom boom. The explosion was different from the past, with a huge momentum, like a building completely collapsed. Ryuze was stunned at first, and then suddenly realized that should be the elite team responsible for the raid on the air ninja Takeoff Tower. Without the assistance of the Takeoff device, many air ninjas on the ground cannot fly even if they have aircraft, let alone escape the encirclement of many fog ninjas. The overall situation of this battle has been decided. Then, Ryuze restrained his mood and continued to clean up along the protective wall. Unfortunately, as more and more fog ninjas rushed up and climbed up the protective wall, the number of air ninjas guarding the protective wall became fewer and fewer. After searching for 5 minutes, he still didn't find any air ninja. Ryuze simply gave up searching on the protective wall and then climbed down from the protective wall and searched inside the town. He could hear that the sounds of fighting were mostly concentrated inside the town, especially the closer to the center, the more concentrated the sounds of fighting were. That meant that the resistance of the air ninja was shrinking towards the center. However, he had just taken a few steps when a strange sound of breaking through the air suddenly came from the sky. He was sure that it was not the common sound of ninja tools being thrown. But for safety reasons, he hurriedly stepped forward a few steps to avoid the general direction of the sound. At this moment, a vague shadow whizzed past from the front. Although he couldn't see it clearly, he quickly recognized that it was the air ninja flying at low altitude to search for targets. Because there were no ninjas who could fly on their side. However, the air ninjas who swooped down to find the target obviously did not have the advantage of Ryuze. In the fog, he could only see a vague figure. It was really difficult for him to judge whether it was his companion who was still on the ground and couldn't take off, or the mist ninja who had already killed him. However, if we cannot judge with our eyes, there are many other ways to distinguish. How long is the service life of our flying ninja tools? The air ninja immediately took off and turned around, swooping down again, and asked a strange question. Faced with such a question, Ryuze could not answer it, and could only tense his nerves, and prepare to fight. If the air ninjas on the ground are weak chickens, then the air ninjas in the sky are full of raptors. With flying ninja tools, they can obtain powerful mobility, and with a convenient chakra hand cannon, even an air ninja with only the level of genin can play a good combat power. Especially for genin and chunin who have relatively scarce means of attack, it is a powerful enemy that is difficult to deal with. At this time, without Ryuze's answer, the swooping air ninja had roughly locked onto Ryuze's previous position and launched an attack. Swish. He directly launched several small bombs to carry out a large area coverage attack, but because of the fog, Ryuze could not see it at all. Fortunately, he was cautious and did not stay there stupidly, but moved a few steps to the side. However, when the small bomb suddenly fell to the ground and exploded, and a dazzling fire burst out in front of him, he was still shocked, and the whole person was blown away by the aftermath of the explosion. Seeing this, Taketori Shinsuke, who was following behind Ryuze not far away, was also shocked. Although he wanted to help, it was too late. The fog was too thick, and there was no sight beyond 2 meters. He didn't see the small bombs that fell to the ground at all. It was not until the explosion fire lit up that he understood what happened. My lord, he rushed forward and prepared to help Ryuze up. No need. Ryuze waved his hand, then gritted his teeth and climbed up, looking at the sky still covered by fog, and said seriously, as long as my life is not in danger, you are not allowed to take action. Although he was embarrassed by the explosion just now, and had many wounds on his body, his blood began to boil, and he became excited. The air ninja on the ground was too weak to be his opponent, but the air ninja in the sky was different, and was a good opponent. Yes. Seeing his firm tone, Taketori Shinsuke had no choice but to retreat into the fog and hide. At this time, Ryuze looked up at the sky and said sarcastically, "Is your attack only this far? It's really disappointing." As he spoke, he opened his hands and 10 fingers and silently formed 10 bone cones at his fingertips, ready to fight. Chapter 141. That's all. Hearing the sound, the swooping air ninja immediately locked onto Ryuze's location and used the chakra hand cannon in his hand to launch an attack. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In an instant, one compressed energy bomb after another shot towards Ryuze's direction. However, Ryuze ignored it and just quietly put on his full attention, closely locking onto the sound of the opponents flying through the air. He had bone spurs on his body for protection, so he didn't need to worry about this level of attack. Since he didn't have to worry about his own safety, the most important thing he should do was to concentrate on locking onto the enemy's traces and seize the opportunity to kill the opponent, rather than letting the opponent harass him endlessly in the air. Bang, bang, bang. Because of the fog, the enemy couldn't accurately lock onto Ryuze's location, and several energy bombs fell at his feet, leaving small holes on the ground. Occasionally, a few of them hit him, but they were all blocked by the dense bone spurs defense, and couldn't hurt him at all. However, the swooping air ninja couldn't see these, but he didn't interrupt his offensive, but instead locked onto Ryuze's approximate location and kept shooting. Hearing the sound of the flying air getting closer, Ryuze also tensed up and became more focused. The 10-finger piercing bullet he mastered was his only long-range attack method at present. The lethality of this move was not strong. In order to maximize the effect of this move, he hoped to wait until he was more confident before making a move, and by the way, he could catch his opponent off guard. Suddenly, accompanied by the sound of breaking through the air, a shadow appeared in the thick fog in front of him, which became clearer and clearer. Liuze did not hesitate, and immediately urged the growth of his finger joints, hitting the bone cones on the fingertips. Corpse bone vein 10-finger piercing bullet in an instant. 10 bone cones popped out of the fingertips and shot towards the shadow. At this time, the air ninja who also saw his shadow also locked his position and used the chakra hand cannon to shoot accurately. Bang bang bang. 5 energy bombs hit Liuze accurately in a row. However, with the bone spur defense, those energy bombs only shook his body surface, and the tear wound caused by the previous explosion was a little painful. However, the air ninja who was suddenly counterattacked by him was not so lucky. There was only a scream, and 5 of the bone spikes hit the opponent, immediately embedded in the flesh and bleeding profusely. The pain made the air ninja grimace, and he almost lost the balance of the aircraft and fell down. But when he finally injured the pain and kept his balance, he found that the other 5 bone spikes hit his aircraft. 3 of them hit the metal wing and did not penetrate it, leaving only 3 dents, but the other 2 bone spikes happened to hit the connection part of the fragile structure of the metal wing. Although the connection part of the fragile structure was not directly broken, it had affected the function of the entire aircraft. Seeing that the aircraft behind him was covered with black smoke, and then it fell to the ground involuntarily, he tried desperately to increase the altitude and get himself into the air again, but all the operations were in vain, and he could only watch himself getting closer and closer to the inside. Finally, amid a scream of terror, the air ninja fell to the ground along with his aircraft. Boom. With a flash of fire, the air ninja who had survived by chance was engulfed by the fire and fell to the ground after struggling desperately. That's all. Looking at the opponent who was easily defeated by him, Liuze was stunned. He thought he would have to try for several rounds before he could find a chance to defeat the opponent. After all, the opponent had an air advantage, and he couldn't fly and couldn't take the initiative. Even if the opponent was determined to escape, he was also helpless and could only watch the opponent leave. Who would have thought that he would inexplicably win in the first round of confrontation? At this moment, Taketori Shinsuke came out of the thick fog and analyzed carefully. Just now, I seemed to see smoke coming out of his aircraft. Perhaps, your bone cone hit his aircraft and caused some damage, so it turned out like this. It seems that's the case. Recalling the battle just now, Liuze nodded. He seemed to have seen the black smoke in the white fog. And if it was because the aircraft was accidentally damaged by him, then this result would not be so difficult to accept. Although he did not know how to make scientific ninja tools, he also knew that scientific ninja tools were not as simple as ordinary ninja tools such as kunai and shuriken. It had a more complex and sophisticated structure. This sophisticated structure gave scientific ninja tools more diverse functions, but it also became one of its weaknesses. If any of the work processes had problems, the entire scientific ninja tool would likely be scrapped and completely lose its function. In the battle just now, it was probably the bone cone he fired that accidentally destroyed a certain structure of the aircraft, which led to the aircraft losing control and crashing. Okay, that's it. Reluctant to accept this most likely outcome, Liuze immediately prepared to leave and continue to look for the next opponent. At this moment, there were shouts from not far away. The captain has ordered everyone to cancel the mist hidden technique. The captain has ordered everyone to cancel the mist hidden technique. Although he didn't understand why, Taketori Shinsuke still silently made a seal. Release. With his light shout, the thick fog that originally belonged to him in this thick fog completely dissipated into the air. Not only that, the other mist ninjas also silently cancelled the technique after receiving the order, and the thick fog covering the entire town also dissipated rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. Soon, the entire town was exposed under the sun again. Seeing the thick fog disappear, Liuze breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. Although the mist hidden technique can block the enemy's sight, it can also block my sight. I'm still not used to fighting by locking the enemy's position based on sound alone. This feeling of having no vision is really uncomfortable. There is no sense of security at all. Take the bombs dropped by the air ninjas before. If he had vision, he should be able to easily avoid those bombs. However, in the thick fog, visibility is less than 2 meters. By the time he saw the bombs, it was too late. Liu even thought of another very important thing from this battle example. As long as the enemy is strong enough, large-scale ninjutsu attacks can be used to make up for the regretted lack of vision. On the other hand, if they are not careful, they may be inexplicably killed by a large-scale attack by the opponent. Chapter 142, Genius of Sustainability. It seems that you need to do some training in sound location. Taketori Shinsuke suggested with a smile. That's right. Rokuze nodded and didn't refuse. Although the mist hidden technique has certain drawbacks, it does not prevent it from being a very useful technique. If there is a chance, he will definitely learn and master this technique. Then, in order to observe the situation, he jumped onto a taller building next to him. The ground of the entire town was covered with corpses, and most of them belonged to air ninjas. As for the remaining air ninjas in the town, there were not many left. As the fog dissipated, the situation became clear. The mist hidden technique, which had already taken the advantage, was even more powerful and easily defeated the remaining air ninja resistance. Seeing that there were only a few left in the sky, holding their chakra hand cannons and constantly bombarding the mist ninjas on the ground. Unfortunately, without the obstruction of the fog, everyone could dodge, as long as they were prepared. Even if they were occasionally hit by that kind of compressed energy bomb, it would not be fatal. Retreat, retreat. Perhaps seeing that the situation was irreversible, a ninja in the sky shouted, and turned back to the sea. Obviously, he was going back to the ship base at sea. The other ninjas did not hesitate, and followed him to leave, disappearing over the town. Seeing this, Liu no longer had the interest to attack. In fact, there was no target for him to attack. The entire town was estimated to have only more than 300 ninjas guarding it, and their 3 teams had nearly 300 people in total, so on average, one person could deal with one. After this round of raids, almost all the ninjas in the town were dead, and the few left were not enough for others. At this moment, he suddenly heard a creaking sound coming from the house opposite. He looked in the direction of the sound, but saw that under the eaves of the opposite house, a small window that was tightly closed opened a crack, and then a curious eye looked over. Based on his experience, Liu could be sure that it should be a child. However, just as the child opened the window a crack, an anxious and restrained cry suddenly came from the room. Taro, didn't I warn you not to move around? What if you attract the attention of those ninjas? Ninjas are too scary for ordinary people, especially when the two sides are fighting. If they are not careful, they will be involved and die. However, the adult's cry did not stop the child. Instead, Liu heard her say with a hint of excitement, "Mom, the ones fighting with those air ninjas outside seem to be the Kirigakure ninjas you told me about. I saw their forehead protectors that looked like wave marks." Kirigakure ninjas? The mother was obviously a little surprised. Because the battle came too suddenly, coupled with the thick fog, they had no idea what was happening outside. They could only hide at home trembling, praying that they would not be affected by the ninjas' battle. Now she heard that one of the parties was the Kirigakure ninjas from the land of water, which really surprised her. Then, Liu saw that another cautious eye suddenly looked out from the crack in the window. "Hello, we are ninjas from Kirigakure." Liu waved and greeted them with interest. At this time, the woman who was slow to realized that she had been discovered and was immediately shocked. "Ah," she screamed, and instinctively closed the window. But after calming down again, she carefully opened the window a crack. Only after confirming that Liu and Taketori Shinsuke were wearing Kirigakure forehead protectors beside her did she feel relieved to open the window completely. Meet the 2 adults of Kirigakure. She forced herself to calm down and saluted Liu and the 2 people on the roof opposite. Although the bloody style of the Kirigakure ninjas is also synonymous with terror in their hearts, they are the legitimate military organization of the land of water after all. They can protect their existence and can be trusted. They are not the same as those foreign air ninjas. Don't be afraid. We have cleared out the air ninjas here. This will always be the territory of the Land of Water, and no outsiders will be allowed to interfere. Lyuze smiled and comforted. Yes, yes. Hearing this, the woman's face had a smile. After all, they are residents of the Land of Water, and the short-lived rule of the Sky Ninja is unlikely to change their minds so quickly. They are naturally happy to be back under the rule of the Land of Water. At this moment, a little boy stood up behind the woman, as if he had mustered up the courage, and asked Lyuze loudly, "Excuse me, to adults, can I join you and become a Kirigakure ninja?" In his previous life, he died young and lived an extremely confused life. This time, he wanted to become a ninja and experience a different life. Of course. Lyuze smiled slightly and said seriously, "Ms. Terumi Mei is recruiting a large number of ordinary people in the city of Angry Sea for ninja training. If you are interested, you can go to the city of Angry Sea and try it." In the past 6 months, Terumi Mei has also expanded the scale of ninja recruitment and training, hoping to quickly expand the number of ninjas. And because of the awakening of reincarnation memories, everyone has wisdom, and the output of ninjas has been greatly improved. Especially those who were ninjas in their previous lives. This time they showed all kinds of talents, and created the image of many genius ninjas. But because there were too many such geniuses, they gradually became worthless later. However, although the newly trained ones were all genin, the increase in the number of new ninjas also greatly enriched the power of the reformists, which was also a real benefit. "Thank you, I will definitely go." The child nodded with a firm face. Seeing that resolute look, Lyuze seemed to see a rising star in him. However, after calming down, he couldn't help but laugh at himself. TSK. Where do so many geniuses come from? Obviously, he is just a guy with wisdom. The other party's eyes were not as pure as those of ordinary children. Instead, they had a hint of utilitarianism and a very clear purpose. If he really regarded the other party as a child with few ambitions, he would be an idiot. At this moment, a new order came from not far away. The captain has ordered that, except for the ninjas who have received the exact instructions to stay behind, everyone else should rush to the seaside to support the first and second teams. After all, the base here is newly built, and the air ninjas are not familiar with the situation. In addition, the various settings have not been completed, so there are not many people left behind. The real main force is still in the opponent's naval base, and they must rush to support as soon as possible. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 143 Powerful Firepower. Okay, let's go. Lyuze looked back at Taketori Shinsuke, then turned over and jumped off the roof. They did not receive any additional missions to stay behind, which meant that they had to follow the team to the beach for support. Then, he saw that one after another, the mist ninja turned around, like a group of beasts that smelled their prey, gathered from all directions of the town, and rolled towards the direction of the smoke rising from the beach like a green torrent. At this moment, Lyuze suddenly saw that a fellow tribesman quickly caught up from behind, wearing their newly developed armor. Recognizing that it was the middle-aged man who was responsible for testing the armor at the beginning, Lyuze immediately approached. "Senior, how is the actual combat effect of this armor?" he asked loudly. Lord Lyuze. Hearing the call, the middle-aged man also recognized him and approached. Then, he waved his hands helplessly and said, no, those air ninjas are too weak, and they can't show the defensive ability of our armor at all." He was very confident in his own armor, but the enemy's weakness was beyond his expectation. If it wasn't for actual combat testing, he wouldn't even bother to use this armor technique to deal with these weak air ninjas. That's true. Lyuze couldn't help but shake his head and laugh after hearing this. Even he felt that they were weak opponents, not to mention his fellow jonins. Having said that, I think this group of air ninjas must have more than just these abilities. After all, they were once famous in the ninja world. Changing the subject, he slowly analyzed. They mainly use scientific ninja tools, so the sea vessels that have gathered their countless scientific and technological capabilities must be extraordinary. When we get there should be a tough battle, and there will definitely be a time for you to show your skills. Besides, their leader Shen is also a rare strong man. We can use his hand to test our armor techniques." Upon hearing this, the middle-aged man's eyes suddenly lit up, and he tried to suppress his excitement and asked, "Sir, can you tell me what kind of strength that Shannon has?" Eliuze thought for a moment, and said seriously, "In his prime, that guy's strength should be enough to rival that of a Shadow Master. Besides, he is best at medical research, and has developed his physical body to the extreme, with extremely strong recovery and physical combat capabilities. If the situation is not good, please retreat immediately, and don't get entangled with him." As he said that, he looked at the middle-aged man very seriously. "Well, I got it." The middle-aged man was extremely excited, but he didn't know whether he had listened to his words. Then Eliuze turned his head and told Taketori Shinsuke on the other side, "Shannon is a great doctor and has done a deep study of the human body. His research data is also helpful for us to study the corpse vein. I order you to find a few smarter tribesmen now, take advantage of the war, to sneak into the air ninja ship base and search to see if you can bring us some useful information." "Yes." Taketori Shinsuke responded, and left to contact the tribesmen. Because of the battle, the tribesmen brought this time have been scattered into the huge crowd, and he needs to spend some energy to search carefully. The whole island is not big. After about 5 minutes of rushing, Eliuze and his party saw the thick smoke rising from the sea from afar, and heard the violent explosion. "Hurry up, hurry up." The 3 team leaders in front began to urge. Everyone did not complain, and silently quickened their pace. Soon, they rushed out of the jungle, and saw 2 huge ships on the sea. One ship was leaning against the shore, emitting thick smoke, and looked seriously damaged, while the other ship was far away from the coast and looked intact. Each of them was over 100 meters long and huge, shining with a cold metallic luster under the sun's glow. It was a steel battleship that was extremely rare in the entire ninja world. What was even more terrifying was that there were many huge cannon-type weapons installed on the battleship, which continuously fired compressed energy bombs at the coast one after another. Eliuze saw at a glance that it should be something similar to the chakra hand cannon used by the air ninja, but it was made giant in pursuit of destructive power. Although the energy bombs that were originally the size of a thumb could hardly kill people, when the muzzles were enlarged and the energy bombs fired were as big as basketballs, the destructive power they exerted was extremely terrifying. Boom. With a loud bang, an energy bomb fell not far from Eliuze, and the terrifying energy exploded instantly, releasing a terrifying impact. Even though they were still nearly 20 meters away, when the gradually weakening impact fell on Eliuze, he still used chakra to absorb the ground to stand firm. When the wind and sand dispersed, the location where the energy bomb exploded had left a deep pit with a diameter of more than 5 meters. Hiss. Seeing this scene, many Miss Ninjas who had just come to support could not help but take a breath of cold air. If such a powerful artillery attack fell directly on them, most people would not be able to survive. Not only that, even if they avoided the direct bombardment range of the artillery attack, judging from the current destructive power, even if they were a little closer, they would likely be seriously injured by the explosion. With such powerful firepower, it is no wonder that the Sky Ninjas can leave a heavy mark in the ninja world. Not only that, in addition to the powerful artillery force, there are also many Sky Ninjas hovering in the sky, constantly bombarding the ground with the chakra hand cannons in their hands, which gave many Miss Ninjas a headache. At this time, King and other Miss Ninjas who led the first and second teams to attack, had been repelled by the powerful firepower of the Sky Ninjas, and were suppressed on the coast. They hid behind the temporary fortifications, and could only use long-range ninjutsu to fight back. Soon, the captains of the 3rd, 4th and 5th teams also found King and others. "King Jonin, what's going on?" Hiding under a temporary bunker, the captain of the 3rd team asked in surprise. According to their assessment of the combat effectiveness of the Sky Ninjas, if the sneak attack is successful and the opponent's takeoff booster device is completely destroyed, the remaining Sky Ninjas will be a piece of cake. But the current situation is that the 1st and 2nd teams are suppressed on the coast, and they seem to be at a disadvantage. Glancing at the smoking ship that was approaching the shore, King said with a wry smile, "The defensive strength of the 2 ships is very different. We successfully destroyed the takeoff device on the first ship through a sneak attack, but we encountered huge resistance when destroying the takeoff device on the second ship. The air ninja on the second ship has obviously undergone rigorous training and is much stronger than ordinary air ninja. This also caused us to not succeed in the first time. Then, their leader Shen appeared. As the deputy Taketori said, that guy possesses extremely terrifying strength. He almost stabilized the situation on his own and organized people to repel our aid. Then that guy ordered the second ship to quickly move away from the coast, further getting rid of our entanglement, and used artillery fire to indiscriminately attack everyone on the first ship. Just like this, we suffered heavy casualties, and the raid failed completely. And because of their powerful firepower coverage, it has become a luxury for us to even get close to their second ship at this moment. Chapter 144 Artillery Test. What about using the mist hiding technique? Previously, we relied on this trick to block our sight, so we were able to launch a successful sneak attack. The captain of the third team asked tentatively. The advantage of the air ninja lies in the convenient high-caliber artillery bombardment and air firepower. But if we can break into the enemy's enemy formation and fight hand to hand, the enemy will no longer be able to use that kind of large-scale destructive artillery weapons at will. It's useless. King shook his head and said helplessly, we are now facing a ship that can sail freely, not a town that cannot be moved. I sent someone to try it once before, but after Shannon found out that we were trying to use the mist hiding technique to block our sight and approach, he directly ordered people to start the ship to move. We can't stop such a giant ship at all. Then there is no way. We can only attack from the front. The captain of the fourth team spread his hands helplessly. The captain of the third team frowned and said, we can attack by force, but I think we can send two small forces to go around to the side and try to launch a pincer attack, which may have an unexpected effect. Well, that's a good idea. The others all nodded. At the same time, Liuze said to the middle-aged man beside him, Senior, why don't we use the bombardment of the air ninja to test our armor? As he said that, he gestured at the explosions that continued to occur on the coast in front. No problem. The middle-aged man responded, and then rushed out to meet the fierce firepower in front. In the sky, some air ninjas noticed this daredevil who suddenly rushed out, and they all used the chakra hand cannons in their hands to attack. Bang, bang, bang. In an instant, more than 100 energy bombs fell on the middle-aged man. But that kind of fragile attack could not break the bone spurs of Liuze, a Chunin, let alone the defensive armor carefully constructed by a Jonin. The more than 100 energy bombs that fell on him could not hurt him at all, and could not even stop his forward steps. Instead, he ran faster and faster. Damn it. Many air ninjas in the sky were furious, but they could do nothing. Chakra hand cannons were already the strongest means of attack in their hands. If even this weapon was useless, they could only watch. However, the middle-aged man in charge of testing the armor did not care what they thought. His goal was those powerful long-range bombardments. For safety reasons, he did not directly take those bombardments, but moved all the way to 10 meters away from a falling energy bomb. Boom. With a loud bang, another powerful energy bomb exploded on the ground, and the powerful impact spread in all directions, covering the middle-aged man who was testing the armor. Fortunately, he was well prepared and used chakra to absorb the ground to stand firm, and was not knocked back by the impact. However, this was not the focus of his attention. His attention was focused on the armor on his body, and he was carefully observing every change of the armor when it was hit by the explosion. The result was very gratifying. This level of explosion could not hurt the armor at all. He needed to increase the difficulty. When the impact of the explosion dissipated, he immediately locked onto another energy bomb that was fired at the shore, and then rushed over at high speed. This time he still kept a distance from the energy bomb, staying 5 meters away from the landing point of the energy bomb, just avoiding the direct range of the energy bomb explosion. Boom. With another loud noise, the middle-aged man in the armor was once again submerged by the explosion. Just like last time, while using chakra to absorb the ground, he focused on sensing the armor on his body and sensing every change of the armor when it was hit. However, this time he was too close to the center of the explosion, and even the soil under his feet was cracked. Naturally, he could not stand and was blown away in an instant. When he regained his footing, he carefully examined the armor. He found that except for some slight cracks on the surface of the armor, there was no serious damage. With such a result, he became more confident and rushed forward again, ready to start the third test. At this time, the air ninja who was firing artillery on the ship also noticed the mist ninja wearing armor and with strong defensive power and immediately locked him and then fired 6 artillery shells at the same time to launch an offensive. This time, the middle-aged man in armor did not control the distance but locked the direction of one of the energy bullets and went straight to meet it. Is he crazy? Seeing this scene, both the air ninja and the mist ninja were shocked, and only the many ninjas of the bamboo clan showed expectation. Boom. With a dazzling flash, the middle-aged man in armor was directly hit by the energy bullet and was completely submerged in the direct impact of the explosion. At this moment, both the enemy and us could not help but temporarily stop the offensive and stretched their necks to see if the warrior in armor was still alive. Soon, the smoke and dust from the explosion dispersed, and a familiar figure wearing armor appeared. The armor made of bones was still intact. What? Everyone was shocked. Such a powerful defense that could directly withstand the bombardment of chakra cannons really refreshed their cognition. They couldn't even imagine what method they should use to break such a terrifying defense. "Senior, how is the test?" Ryuze asked loudly. After checking the inconspicuous cracks on the armor, the middle-aged man silently estimated it and then replied without concealing, "Very good. Even if it withstands 20 consecutive bombardments, there will be no problem." He was not afraid of the air ninjas on the battlefield knowing this, because even if they knew, they couldn't do anything to him. After all, they couldn't really mobilize 20 chakra cannons to attack him for him alone. You know, the chakra cannons on the 2 battleships only add up to more than 20. Ryuze was very excited to get this result. He knew very well that the armor could withstand 20 consecutive bombardments, but that was only when they did not use the corpse vein to intervene. If the corpse vein was used to repair the damage to the armor in time, unless this group of air ninjas could directly destroy their armors at one time, it would be impossible to destroy their armors through cumulative damage effects. At the same time, King, who saw this situation, hurriedly found Ryuze and asked anxiously, "Excuse me, Deputy Taketori, what's the matter with your set of armor?" Ryuze replied happily, "This is our newly developed technique, which we deliberately brought to this battlefield for actual combat testing. How is it? Not bad." As he said that, he looked proudly at the fellow who blocked another bombardment. Chapter 145, Unstoppable. "It's really amazing." King nodded and asked, "I wonder how many of his fellow tribesmen who can use this kind of battle armor technique did Taketori bring this time?" 20. Ryuze reported the number very straightforwardly. Hearing this, King was immediately surprised and said hurriedly, "Can you ask Taketori's 20 fellow tribesmen to resist the bombardment and share the pressure for everyone so that we have a chance to capture the 2 warships?" The 2 warships have a total of only more than 20 chakra cannons. As long as someone can block 20 cannons, the others can naturally drive straight in and successfully attack the air ninja ship. By then, the air ninja's chakra cannon will be difficult to play a role. Without the assistance of this powerful chakra cannon firepower, the air ninja's ability alone is no match for them. "No problem." Ryuze nodded without hesitation. Having already passed the bombardment test, he naturally doesn't have to worry about the safety of his fellow tribesmen. He then said to Taketori Shinsuke next to him, "Shinsuke Jonin, please notify the 20 members of the same clan who can use the armor technique to block the chakra cannon of the air ninja and create opportunities for everyone." "Yes." Taketori Shinsuke immediately stood up and left. "In that case, we will also organize a counterattack." Looking at the 4 team leaders beside him, King also turned and left. Because the chakra bombardment of the air ninja was too fierce, they had been suppressed on the coast, and now they finally waited for the opportunity to counterattack. Soon, Ryuze's order was passed to the ears of the 20 jonin who were responsible for the experimental armor. Especially after seeing the effect of the middle-aged member of the same clan using the armor to directly withstand the bombardment, they did not hesitate at all and immediately put on the armor to take the initiative to meet the long-range bombardment. Boom boom boom. only loud explosions were heard, and countless chakra bombardments were actively blocked by people in midair, and only a few fell to the ground. The destructive effect of the group bombardment was instantly weakened by nearly 90%. When the dazzling light from the explosion faded, the figures wearing armor appeared intact. Hiss. Seeing this, the Sky Ninjas couldn't help but take a breath. They only had more than 20 chakra cannons in total. If one was blocked by one person, the few remaining chakra cannons would not be enough to cover a large area of the battlefield, and would not be of much use. Quick, get away from them. Chakra cannons are useless against them. The Sky Ninja in charge of commanding the firing shouted anxiously. However, once the bombardment was launched, it could no longer be controlled. Although they could avoid the firing of the 20 Miss Ninjas wearing armor, the Liu side could take the initiative to resist. At the same time, seeing that the situation was good, King and the other 5 team leaders immediately took the lead in launching a charge. Let's go. Their first target was the Sky Ninja ship that was docked. That was also the first ship they successfully attacked. Unfortunately, they were driven off the ship by Shennong's indiscriminate bombardment with chakra cannons. Because of this, that ship was severely damaged and could only stay on the shore. However, more than half of the chakra cannons on the ship were still left, so later, some air ninjas returned to that ship and used those chakra cannons to launch a fierce counterattack against them. At this moment, with the Taketori clan withstanding the bombardment, their counterattack was much easier. Water escape, water dragon, bullet earth escape, earth and stone dragon. Everyone used ninjutsu to fight back, and immediately many air ninjas hovering at low altitude were shot down. As they got closer and closer to the first ship, the entire ship also entered the range of the Mist Ninja's spells. Under the bombardment of many Mist Ninjas ninjutsu, the air ninjas with low basic quality could not resist at all. Seeing that the air ninjas on the first ship were swept away, no one could control those chakra cannons. Without stopping, everyone immediately flipped over the air ninja's warship and continued to attack another air ninja warship not far away. However, King and the others were very careful to leave some Mist Ninjas to guard the first battleship, to prevent the Sky Ninjas in the sky from occupying it again, and controlling the chakra cannons, to attack them from behind. Seeing that the Mist Ninjas were unstoppable, the Sky Ninjas suddenly became anxious. Damn it. The armor those guys are wearing is too strong. Our chakra cannons can't do anything to them. The Sky Ninjas who were responsible for firing the cannons were shocked and terrified. They could only rely on scientific ninja tools to suppress the long-range firepower to compete with the Mist Ninjas. Now that the chakra cannons were blocked, he had seen the fate of his side. The others listened without refutation and silently expressed their approval. In an instant, a pessimistic mood began to spread on the battleship. As the leader, Shennon realized that the situation was not good, and he immediately understood that he should do something to boost his morale. Otherwise, if the situation continued like this, they would have no chance of winning this battle. He slowly stood up from the throne, and then tore off his clothes, revealing a shriveled body of muscles. At this time, his hair was a little gray. Compared with the Shennon that Liu knew when he fought with Uzumaki Naruto in his previous life, he was much younger, but he was still an old man. Then, he slowly formed a seal, and mobilized his chakra. After a strange transformation, it became a special active force, and injected into all parts of his body. Medical forbidden technique. Flesh activation. In an instant, the muscles all over his body began to tremble slowly, like a balloon being inflated, starting to expand little by little. Soon, Shennong's originally skinny body suddenly became strong, and the whole body became a muscular man, exuding a sturdy aura from head to toe. Young and abundant power is really intoxicating. He closed his eyes, gently clenched his hands, and his face was full of satisfaction. Although it was not the first time to experience this kind of flesh activation, to restore the feeling of youth, every time he felt this power, he would feel extremely happy. Unfortunately, Zero Tail is not yet completed, and such a body cannot be fully functional. Opening his eyes and looking at the solid muscles on his body, Shennon couldn't help but sigh. The stronger the body, the greater its potential. And in order to control this potential and use it freely, it is necessary to open the 8 gates and remove the 8 natural restrictions on the human body. Due to the memory of his previous life, He has mastered the method of opening the 8 gates, but he also knows that without the chakra replenishment of Zero Tail, even if he opens the 8 gates, it will only be a short-lived burst. It may even endanger his life and put himself to death. He has no choice but to temporarily meet the enemy in this state. However, he is very confident that with the ultimate body he created using flesh activation, even without opening the 8 gates, it is enough to deal with the enemy in front of him. Chapter 146 Shen'ng takes action. Winter. Shen-Nang stomped his foot hard on the deck, and then he rushed towards the many Mist Ninjas wading in the sea like an arrow. His target was the 20 Mist Ninjas wearing strange armor. As long as they dealt with those 20 people, their chakra cannons would no longer be restrained, and they could suppress the Mist Ninjas with powerful firepower as before, and regain control of the battlefield. At the same time, Eliuze, who was wading and charging with the Mist Ninjas, also noticed the figure that shot out from the warship. "Be careful, that's Shen-Nang," he warned loudly. After seeing the extremely strong muscles, he immediately confirmed that it was Shen-Nang, and that he had used flesh activation to strengthen his body to the extreme. Apart from other things, the opponent's strong physical strength alone was enough to rival the big guy like the 4th Raikage, and his every move could cause great destructive power. Even if the 8 acupoints were not opened, the opponent's current strength was the top in the ninja world, and it was not something that ordinary people could resist. However, the Mist Ninjas from the original 1st and 2nd teams did not need his reminder, because they had already seen Shen'ng's strength after the failure of the first raid. Seeing Shen'ng's attack again, many ninjas' faces suddenly tightened. That strong body was just like a monster, and it was really hard for them to have the courage to fight against it. The Mist Ninjas from the other 3 teams couldn't help laughing when they saw it. "Why are you so nervous? He's just a guy with muscles all over his body. See how we deal with him." Many Jonins immediately accelerated confidently to meet him. Seeing the knotted muscles, they knew without testing that the opponent must have extraordinary physical strength, and did not intend to give the opponent a chance to fight in close combat. They dispersed and used long-range ninjutsu to attack before the opponent approached. Water style, water break wave lightning style, lightning light wind style, wind slash. In an instant, countless ninjutsu formed a torrent and shot towards Shen'ng. Facing the ninjutsu attacks of more than a dozen Mist Ninjas at the same time, Shen'ng did not dare to take them head on, even though he had a strong body. Although he would not be killed directly, he would definitely be seriously injured. With his ability, as long as he had a breath left, he would never die, and he could use body regeneration to recover quickly. But any ability requires chakra support. Without the chakra supply of Zero Tail, he had to rely on his limited chakra to maintain it. He was naturally unwilling to waste his strength in such a place. Then, he silently made a seal. Boom boom boom. Accompanied by a roar and explosion, the torrent of countless ninjutsu intertwined the figure of Shen'ng. However, when all the fluctuations dissipated, everyone did not see Shen'ng's body. "This is impossible." The Mist Ninjas were shocked. Although they were confident that they could kill Shen'ng with ninjutsu bombing, they would never be so arrogant as to think that they could destroy Shen'ng's body. Obviously, Shen'ng should have used some method to avoid their joint attack. Just as everyone was anxiously looking for Shen'ng's whereabouts around, a perceptive Mist Ninja anxiously issued a warning. "Be careful, he's in the water." Hearing this, the people who were rushing in the front couldn't help but feel nervous. No wonder they didn't find Shen'ng's trace in the first place. It turned out that guy had escaped into the water. But before they could make any further moves, a sturdy figure immediately shot out from the bottom of the water and got into the formation of the Mist Ninja. With the help of the substitution technique, Shen'ng avoided the joint attack of the Mist Ninjas and took the opportunity to escape into the water, quietly approaching the opponent from the bottom of the water. Die. Ignoring the terrified look of the Mist Ninja in front of him, Shen'ng punched him casually. Bang. There was only a muffled sound, and the Mist Ninja was hit by a punch, and his entire chest collapsed, and then he vomited blood and flew out, and even knocked down several Mist Ninjas behind him. Seeing their companions being attacked, the other Mist Ninjas were shocked and angry, and hurriedly rushed up with long swords and kunai. The enemy had already entered their formation. In order to avoid accidentally hurting their own people, they did not dare to use ninjutsu rashly. However, Facing their attacks, Shenung simply ignored them. Instead, he was like a cannonball, locking onto the nearest armored Taketori Jonin, and pounced on him. Arrogant. Insolent. The mist ninjas who launched the attack were furious when they found themselves being ignored, and they increased the strength of their hands. However, when the kunai and long swords fell on the opponent, they realized how wrong they were. Shenung's taut muscles were like hard rocks. Even if they used all their strength, they could only break through the opponent's skin, and it was difficult to cause substantial damage. What's worse is that the opponent also has an extremely strong self-healing ability. In the blink of an eye, the wounds they just left were completely healed. What? Everyone was shocked. However, this was just the beginning. Shenung relied on his strong body and strength to rush out. The mist ninjas blocking his way were knocked out with blood spitting out of their mouths. He was seen as if he was in an empty space, and he killed directly to the nearest Taketori Jonin. Well done. The Taketori Jonin was relatively young, and he was very excited to see such a strong man coming to him. He gave up the task of intercepting the bombardment, and went to meet him. He was no longer interested in such a simple task as intercepting the bombardment. It was just a good opportunity for him to try out his armor on the leader of the air ninjas. In just a moment, the two of them started a fierce physical confrontation. However, Shenung is best at medicine, and his essence is still a medical ninja. As for physical skills, he just relies on his strong body to suppress others. Now that he has encountered a famous person in the field of physical skills, he naturally cannot gain any advantage in his moves, which exposes this defect. After more than a dozen rounds, not only did he fail to hurt the Taketori Jonin, but he was stabbed by the opponent's bone spurs 5 or 6 times. If it were not for his strong body and self-healing ability, he would have turned into a corpse and fell down at this moment. No, we must fight quickly and can't delay any longer. Seeing that the situation was not good and the mist ninjas were getting closer and closer to his second ship, he made up his mind and was ready to exchange his injuries for his life. Then, he took a deep breath and no longer planned to resist any attacks from his opponent. He concentrated his strength on his right hand and punched the Taketori Jonin in the chest with all his strength. You're looking for death. The young Taketori Jonin didn't think too much about it. He immediately concentrated his chakra on the armor to stimulate the bone spur and aimed the bone spur in the palm of his hand at the opponent's neck and poked it. Chapter 147. The Defeat of Khan Ren. Bang. Shenung's fierce punch landed firmly on the armor. However, at the moment when the fist touched the armor, a bone spur suddenly grew on the surface of the armor, and the bone spur on the Taketori Jonin's hand also fell on Shenung's fragile neck. What? Feeling the resistance encountered by the bone spur, the young Taketori Jonin was horrified. His bone spur only barely penetrated 3 inches into Shenung's neck and could not go any further, blocked by the opponent's strong physique. And he was not the only one who was shocked. Shenung, as the opponent, was also horrified. This is impossible. The armor, which was obviously made of bone, was extremely hard, far beyond his imagination. Even with his current physique, he could not break it with a full strength punch, but only felt that it was cracked. What's more terrible is that the opponent has spawned a bone spur on the surface of the armor. When he punched it, it was as if he had taken the initiative to hit it. With the opponent's strength alone, it would be difficult to really hurt himself, even if the bone spur was sharp, but if he hit it with all his strength, it would be different. When his fist hit the opponent, his arm was pierced by the bone spur. However, his strength was superior after all, and he did not suffer any loss in the whole fight. In just a moment, the young Taketori Jonin was knocked away. At this time, the Taketori Jonin wearing armor nearby also surrounded him. They have powerful armor defense, so they are naturally not afraid of this kind of physical ninja. Shenung did not dare to neglect it when he saw it. While on guard, he silently mobilized his chakra. Forbidden medical technique flesh regeneration in an instant. The bulging muscles on his right hand began to move violently like giant snakes lurking under the skin. The wound on his arm that was pierced by the bone spur began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the bleeding stopped. In just a moment, it was completely restored to its original state, as if he had never been injured, with only the blood that had not yet dried remaining on his hand. At this moment, 3 Taketori Jonin in armor had accelerated and rushed up. Shenron had no way to avoid it and greeted them with a sneer. In an instant, the 4 of them immediately fought in a ball. At this time, Ryuze, who had rushed over from behind, and the rest of his clansmen fished out the Taketori Jonin who had just been knocked away from the water. "How is it? Are you okay?" Looking at the cracks on the opponent's armor, Ryuze asked anxiously. "Wow." However, before the young Taketori Jonin could answer, he opened his mouth and spit out a large mouthful of seawater. When he had almost vomited out all the seawater in his stomach, he smiled bitterly and said, "Don't worry, sir, our armor has strong defense, and I was not seriously injured. However, because that guy's strength is too strong, and he exchanged his life for his injury, he caught me off guard. I almost couldn't catch my breath in my chest, so I sank into the water and drank a lot of seawater." Hearing this, Ryuze and others finally breathed a sigh of relief. The young Taketori Jonin did not stop and continued, "However, that guy's strength is really terrifying, and there are probably not many people in the entire ninja world who can compare with him. I estimate that, if there are 2 more attacks like that, I'm afraid our armor will be completely shattered." As he spoke, he pointed to the crack on his chest armor. Even the seemingly powerful chakra cannon of the Sky Ninja only left some shallow cracks on their armor, but the guy called Shenron could leave visible cracks on the armor with just one punch, which was really incredible. Hearing this, everyone also focused their attention on the cracks on his armor. While sensing the extent of the damage to the armor, they began to silently calculate in their hearts, and soon came to the same conclusion. Facing an attack like Shenron's, their armor can only withstand 3 times, and it will be completely shattered after 3 times. However, they are good at using the corpse bone vein, which can control the bone, to restore the armor at any time. As long as it is not destroyed at once, there is naturally no possibility of being slowly broken. Alright. Ryuze stood up, looked back at the 4-man battle group not far away, and said seriously, "Let them deal with Shenron. Our target is that ship. With the powerful defense of the armor, Shenron's power has nowhere to be used. The 3 senior ninjas are enough to hold him back. They only need to deal with other air ninjas." Or seeing that the chakra cannon is useless, the mist ninjas are getting closer and closer to the second battleship. The air ninjas hovering in the sky are becoming more and more anxious, trying their best to block the actions of the mist ninjas. Unfortunately, their chakra hand cannons are not lethal enough. Even though they delayed the actions of the mist ninjas, they are still not enough to completely stop them. There were even many air ninjas who were suddenly attacked by the mist ninjas on the sea when they dived to attack and died. The entire battlefield situation began to tilt towards the mist ninjas. Yes, everyone responded and continued to move forward with the large force towards the Sky Ninja ship. Shenron was very anxious when he saw this, but he could do nothing. He thought he could easily break these strange armors, but he didn't expect that the defense of these armors was far beyond his imagination. Faced with the siege of 3 Taketori Jonin wearing armor, he couldn't get away for a while. At the same time, as they got closer and closer to the Sky Ninja battleship, Ryuze whispered to the person next to him, "Junin Shinsuke, how are the things I arranged for you earlier going?" "Everything went well." Taketori Shinsuke smiled and said, "I think they should have sneaked into the Sky Ninja battleship by now. They attacked from the front, attracting most of the air ninjas' firepower, thus hindering their speed. But the few fellow tribesmen he arranged to sneak in and steal the data went through the side, and they should not encounter any resistance." At this moment, there was a sudden explosion on the ship. Boom. With a loud bang, thick smoke suddenly rose from the air ninja's warship. "It seems that we are not the only ones who have successfully sneaked in." Ryuze couldn't help but sigh when he saw it. Obviously, King and his men also sent out a small surprise attack force to launch a sneak attack from the side, and they have succeeded. Originally, he was a little worried. What if these air ninjas didn't fight with them and just drove away on the ship? After all, they couldn't stop the giant ship that was more than 100 meters long. But now, the surprise attack force has succeeded in the sneak attack, and it will inevitably destroy the power system of the ship as soon as possible. Now, they can't run away, even if they want to. Not only that, as the surprise attack force sneaked into the rear of the air ninjas, the situation on the entire battleship suddenly became chaotic. and even the chakra bombardment became much sparse. Seeing the morale increase, the Miss Ninjas accelerated their advance and saw that the front group was less than 100 meters away from the ship. The situation on the entire battlefield took a sharp turn for the worse. Chapter 148, Sheneng escapes. Damn it, Sheneng's eyes turned red with anger, but he was entangled by 3 bamboo ninjas and couldn't get away at all. He could only watch the situation deteriorate step by step. This was not the ending he expected at all. In his opinion, the ending should be that he relied on his strong body to kill all the people in the array of Miss Ninjas, and then cooperated with the firepower of the chakra cannon and the attack of the air ninjas to defeat the group of Miss Ninjas. Who would have thought that this group of bamboo ninjas wearing strange bone armor could actually block his attack directly, which completely broke his fantasy. Especially when he found that after he finally broke the opponent's armor regardless of his own damage, the opponent easily repaired the armor through the corpse bone vein, which really stimulated his mind. No, if it drags on like this, I will definitely be exhausted to death here. I must leave quickly. Seeing that the situation was getting more and more critical, Sheneng made a decision immediately. This newly occupied stronghold must not be able to be defended, and it is necessary to preserve strength and retreat. Thinking of this, he completely lost his will to fight, and went straight to grab the bone spur that was stabbing him. Good opportunity. The other 2 Taketori Jonins immediately used bone spurs to stab Sheneng from the left and right sides. However, Sheneng had no intention of resisting their attacks at all, and almost all his attention was focused on the Taketori Jonin in front of him. Want to concentrate your strength to break through me? Dream on. The Taketori Jonin in front immediately saw Sheneng's plan. Just when the bone spur was about to pierce Sheneng's palm, he saw it flexibly turn its wrist, avoiding Sheneng's thick hand, and fell directly on Sheneng's chest. Puff. 3 bone spurs pierced Sheneng's body from different directions. However, because of their strong bodies, the bone spurs of the 3 people did not pierce deep, only less than 3 inches. But before the 3 people had time to be happy, they heard Sheneng snort coldly. It's over. Sheneng took advantage of the situation and grabbed the arm of the man in front of him. With a gentle tug, he pulled him up from the sea and pulled out the bone spur that had pierced his body. Not good. The Taketori Jonins on both sides felt something was wrong and immediately prepared to pull out the bone spur to distance themselves. But at this moment, they found that the bone spur was caught by a strong force and could not be easily pulled out. Looking down again, they saw that it was Sheneng who tightened his muscles and clamped their bone spurs with his muscles. Seeing this scene, they knew that the other party didn't want them to escape. The 2 of them acted decisively and immediately used the power of the corpse bone vein to cut off the bone spur. However, because of the pause just now, they had lost the best chance to dodge. Sheneng directly grabbed the arm of the Taketori Jonin in front of him, as if he had grabbed a large weapon, and smashed it directly to the left and right. Bang bang. The Taketori Jonins on both sides were hit immediately before they could avoid it, and were directly smashed out. Although they had armor to improve their defense, the gap between their own strength and Sheneng's was too big. Previously, they had been using physical skills to entangle them, and tried their best to avoid head-on collisions. Sheneng could not do anything to them, but now Sheneng had seized the opportunity and the situation was reversed immediately. However, knowing that their armor had strong defense, this was not enough to kill them, but Sheneng did not want to continue to entangle, and immediately threw the bamboo troll ninja who had been knocked unconscious in his hand, and turned around, and rushed towards the battleship. He still had a lot of things in the battleship, and he had to take them away even if he retreated. And this battleship, even if he couldn't take it away, he must not leave it to the Kirigakure ninja. That was the foundation of their ninja. In the back, when the 3 people who were knocked unconscious climbed up again, Sheneng was no longer around. Damn it, let him run away. The young bamboo troll ninja was very angry, but there was nothing he could do. He could only temporarily give up the idea of tracking and chase after the main force. Because of the entanglement with Sheneng, they had fallen far behind. At this time, Liuzen and others also came to the second battleship of the air ninja, and the front group of Miss Ninjas had already climbed up along the hull and started a fierce battle with the air ninjas on it. Let's hurry up and get on to. avoiding an energy bomb that suddenly shot from the sky. Ryuze ignored it and climbed up the hull with his hands and feet. Because the air ninjas in the sky flew too high, their ninjutsu could not reach them at all, so everyone could only choose to turn a blind eye and avoid the opponent's attacks. Only when those impatient guys in the sky dived to attack, they would consider counter-attacking and relieve their resentment. Not long after, he and the accompanying Taketori Shinsuke boarded the deck of the battleship. At this time, the air ninjas on the ship had been almost cleared, and only a small number of air ninjas hid in the complex interior of the ship and continued to resist, relying on the terrain environment. Of course, the air ninjas in the sky were not idle either. They still used chakra hand cannons to shoot at the bottom without interruption. Perhaps because all the mist ninjas were concentrated on the ship, the attacks of the air ninjas also seemed to be more concentrated. The countless compressed energy bombs poured down like a rainstorm. Although one bomb was not enough to kill them, ordinary ninjas could not resist the dense rain of bullets. Seeing that, the steel deck was left with dense bombardment craters. Fortunately, everyone knew that they could not do anything to those guys, so they did not get entangled too much. They all got into the warships, looking for valuable things, or clearing out the remaining enemies, and avoiding the dense rain of bullets. The air ninjas in the sky also knew their disadvantages. Once they landed inside the warship, they would become the target of others hunting. Therefore, they could only hover in the sky and worry about nothing. At this time, Ryuze, who also entered the warship, found a remote room and opened the door carefully. At this moment, an energy bomb shot out from the crack of the door with a faint light. "Is there anyone?" Ryuze was surprised, but it was too late to dodge. Fortunately, for his own safety, he created dense bone spurs on his body surface for defense since the beginning of the battle, and he has not taken them back yet. The energy bullet naturally landed on his bone spurs and failed to break through his defense. It only shocked his action of opening the door and made him pause for a moment. Faced with a sudden attack, Ryuze did not hesitate. He immediately spread out the 5 fingers of his left hand and reached in through the crack of the door. Corpse bone vein 10 fingers piercing bullets in an instant. 5 bone spikes flew out from his fingertips and hit back in the direction of the energy bullet. Ah! A scream came from the room immediately. Obviously, the hidden attacker was hit by Ryuze, but he did not rush in. Instead, he kicked the door completely open and quickly dodged to the side. Tomato Novel Network Chapter 149. The game is over. At the moment the door was kicked open, several more energy bombs shot out. Fortunately, Ryuze dodged in time and was not hit. Although he had bone spurs on his body to defend himself, there was a high probability that he could block those energy bombs. Even if he was hit directly on his body, the weak lethality of those energy bombs would not pose a fatal threat, but he did not like to bear it like this. No one knew whether the next inconspicuous enemy would use unexpected moves. Relying on one's own strong defense to bear it hard always involves risks. Once a habit is formed, one day you will encounter a move that you cannot bear hard, and you may regret it. Therefore, when you can hide, Ryuze still likes to avoid it as much as possible. At the moment, when the attack stopped inside, he burst out again and rushed in from the door. Until this moment, he finally saw clearly that there were 2 air ninjas hiding inside. One of them was hit by his own macro bone spike and was leaning against the wall with a painful face, while the other was holding the chakra hand cannon tightly and facing the direction of the door. However, after finding that his attack just now failed to hit the opponent behind the door, the second air ninja was obviously a little surprised. At this moment of surprise, when he saw Ryuze suddenly rushing in again, he was immediately frightened and pale. Damn it! He roared and used the chakra hand cannon again. It must be said that scientific ninja tools are really too convenient. Even though Ryuze caught the opponent off guard, the opponent still fired an energy bomb instantly with the convenience of the chakra hand cannon. Ryuze couldn't dodge in time and could only adjust his body slightly and block it with the bone spurs on his body. However, his attack momentum had to be delayed for a while because of the energy bomb. At this moment, the air ninja fired another energy bomb. Bang! After being hit again, even though it was blocked by the bone spurs, Ryuze's speed couldn't help but slow down. At this time, another injured air ninja also reacted and aimed a hand cannon at him despite the severe pain. However, Liuze didn't intend to give them a chance. At this moment, he mobilized his chakra to drive the corpse bone vein, to control the growth of bone spurs. Swish. Several bone spurs suddenly grew out on his chest, just like rubber that was suddenly stretched more than 3 meters. The two air ninjas had no idea that he would launch such a sudden attack, and were immediately nailed to the wall behind them by the growing bone spurs. However, even if they thought of it, they could not avoid it, because the basic quality of air ninjas is too low. Without the air advantage, their movement speed and reaction ability are not as good as those of ordinary ninjas. It's just that the chakra hand cannon is easy to fire, so it's a bit troublesome. When the two of them died completely, Liuze took back the bone spurs and took one of the chakra hand cannons in his hand. He had always wanted to collect one to try it out and have a taste of it, but there was no suitable opportunity. Now he finally waited. Then, he aimed the muzzle at the ground and silently injected a strand of his chakra into it. Bang! With a slight sound, a shallow dent was left on the steel floor. What a convenient weapon. Looking at the chakra hand cannon in his hand and the dent on the ground, Liuze couldn't help but sigh. Although the lethality is very limited, it is really convenient to use. It's a pity that this weapon is not up to standard after all, and it has no meaning for Chunin and Jonin. Taketori Shinsuke shook his head. Having said that, these things still have some merits. Liuze did not completely deny the role of these scientific ninja tools, and said, if they can be improved, they may become very good weapons and greatly enhance the strength of the first level genin. Hearing this, Taketori Shinsuke's heart moved, and he tried to ask, are you going to let the clan study this, sir? You think too much. Liuze shook his head, threw the chakra hand cannon on the ground, and said, our clan is not good at studying this, and working hard in this area is just a waste of energy. After I go back this time, I may propose to Meditarumi that they join such a research. The overall strength of the reformists is much stronger than our single clan. As he said, his attention has been diverted, and he began to search the room. Now that the overall situation has been decided, he does not want to waste unnecessary time to clear out the remaining air ninjas hiding in various places of the battleship. In his opinion, instead of wasting that time, it is better to search the battleship of the air ninjas, and maybe find something valuable. Let the reformists do it? That's quite appropriate. Taketori Shinsuke nodded. Anyway, as long as it's not our own people doing this boring research, it's fine. Okay, don't think about those useless things. Search quickly to see if there is anything valuable here. Liuze urged while searching. Yes. Taketori Shinsuke responded, and then joined the search. At the same time, Shennon also took advantage of the chaos to sneak back to the battleship. Relying on his familiarity with the entire battleship, he was the first to return to the core control hub and close the many gates to block the invasion of the Miss Ninja. He gathered some of his trusted air ninjas and began to move his valuables. Not long after, seeing that everything had been moved, he followed many air ninjas to a space area at the bottom. There is an escape submarine hidden here, which allows them to escape quietly from the bottom of the water. Before entering the submarine, he seriously asked his confidant, has the self-destruction program of the battleship been activated? It has been activated. It will self-destruct and sink into the sea in about 10 minutes. The confidant replied with a serious face. Although they were reluctant, they were even more reluctant to leave this battleship to the Miss Ninjas. Very good. Shennon nodded, and then said, in this case, then send a retreat signal to all the air ninjas outside. After that, he turned around and strode towards the entrance of the submarine. However, with every step forward, his body size shrank a little, and all his strong muscles began to shrink rapidly. By the time he entered the submarine, he had completely turned back into the old man with grey hair and a hunched body. This was not the backlash of the technique, but he had lifted the effect of body activation. After all, his state was not a permanent change, but a time-limited effect of the technique. And to maintain the technique, chakra must be consumed. But without the power supply of Zero Tail, he could not maintain this powerful state for a long time. Originally, he heard the news of the Vulpix and deliberately came here to search, preparing to catch it to feed Zero Tail, and by the way, cut a piece of meat in the land of water, to revive the former land of sky. Unfortunately, he still underestimated the power of the hidden mist village. Even if it was only a quarter. Chapter 150 Safe Retreat. Soon, many of the air ninjas hovering outside received the order to retreat. Without hesitation, they immediately abandoned the mist ninjas on the sea and flew away without looking back. Many mist ninjas wanted to intercept them, but they had no choice but to watch their opponents fly farther and farther. Why do I feel something is wrong? The mist ninjas frowned. Anyway, let's quickly inform the blue ninjas of this news. Another mist ninja shook his head and disappeared from the spot. Soon, the news of the air ninjas' retreat spread to every corner of the ship. However, this was a hard time for the air ninjas who were stuck in the warships and couldn't get out. They had been treated as abandoned pawns. Especially as air ninjas, they knew better what their retreating companions would do. No, I don't want to die. The air ninjas who had been hiding in various places on the warships began to rush out regardless of everything. For a moment, their sudden brave attack also made the mist ninjas in a panic. At the same time, after killing 3 air ninjas that ran into them in succession, Ryuze couldn't help but frown. He noticed that these air ninjas had no intention of fighting at all, and they just wanted to escape. Originally, the retreat of the air ninjas outside meant that the air ninjas were completely defeated, and it was normal for these remaining air ninjas to have no intention of fighting. But Ryuze noticed that the 3 air ninjas were very scared and tried desperately to escape from here, as if there was some terrifying monster hidden in this warship. Of course, this monster is definitely not their mist ninjas. Although they can scare these air ninjas, they are not so desperate to escape. As long as these air ninjas surrender, they can still survive. He felt that there should be something wrong here. Junior Shinobi, please capture another air ninja for interrogation. I want to know what they are afraid of. Ryuze turned around and ordered his confidant behind him. Yes. Taketori Shinsuke immediately turned and left, while Rokuze continued to search each room of the battleship one by one. Unfortunately, this battleship was over 100 meters long, extremely large in size, and had a lot of space inside. He had searched more than a dozen rooms, but still hadn't found anything useful. Even so, Rokuze was unwilling to give up. Time is precious, and if you just stand there and wait, it would be a waste of your life. Soon, after he had searched 2 more rooms, Taketori Shinsuke came back in a hurry. My lord, this is bad. We must leave here as soon as possible. Before he even got to the front, Taketori Shinsuke shouted anxiously. What's going on? Rokuze stopped searching, his face serious. He believed that the other party must have interrogated some important information. Taketori Shinsuke swallowed his saliva and said, I just captured an air ninja for interrogation. He told me that once the air ninja decided to retreat, it means that they have activated the self-destruction program of the battleship. They will never leave their battleship to the enemy. Damn it. Hearing this news, Ryuze's heart couldn't help but skip a beat. Quick, we must leave immediately. In addition, we must notify other mist ninjas and ask them to evacuate quickly, especially those of our clan. He rushed out of the room and immediately issued a new order. This battleship is more than 100 meters long. Once it is completely detonated, the destructive power of the explosion is simply immeasurable. By then, there are probably not many people left in this battleship who can survive. Especially now that we don't know how long the self-destruction program has been activated. He doesn't want to go, and he doesn't dare to gamble on the slim possibility of unlocking the self-destruction program. The safest way at the moment is to notify everyone to evacuate the ship as soon as possible. Taketori Shinsuke followed closely behind and said seriously, don't worry, sir. When I got the news, I had already informed other mist ninjas and asked them to pass the news on to others. Not only them, but other mist ninjas also learned the news from the escaped sky ninjas and spread it further. Everyone did not dare to continue searching in the warship and fled. At this time, a team of Taketori ninjas also found Ryuze on the sea. Hello, sir. Several people saluted together. What's the matter? Ryuze asked, puzzled. Seeing this, Taketori Shinsuke immediately reminded in a low voice, my lord, they are the special team you asked me to arrange earlier to sneak into the air ninja warship to search for information. Oh, so that's how it is. Ryuzen nodded and then smiled at a few people and said, earlier, I also entered the warship to search. Unfortunately, I didn't get anything valuable. I wonder how the situation is over there? Hearing this, a female Taketori ninja who was in the lead said excitedly, fortunately, we have fulfilled our mission. We took advantage of the chaos to sneak into the air ninja warship and found a medical laboratory on the 3rd floor of the warship. Then we confiscated a lot of experimental and medical information from the laboratory. Very good, very good. Ryuzen smiled happily, sweeping away the depression that had just been threatened by the warship's self-detonation. As the air ninja retreated and the battle ended, many Taketori ninjas gathered after discovering him on the sea. Seeing that the number of people was almost all there, Ryuzen immediately called many of his fellow tribesmen to prepare to go ashore. Let's go. The battleship of the Sky Ninja is too big. If it explodes, it will be a big deal. We must stay away from it. Even though they have kept a distance of nearly 100 meters, he still feels unsafe. Seeing the Bamboo Cutter clan taking action, King did not continue to wait for others to come out and join him. He also called on other Miss Ninjas to leave together. He could not put the others in danger just to wait for the Miss Ninjas who were still lingering in the Sky Ninja battleship. However, just as the group started to leave, a huge explosion roared from the battleship behind them. The self-destruction of the Sky Ninja battleship was officially launched. Boom. With the first explosion, it was like a chain reaction, and bursts of explosions occurred one after another. Then, accompanied by waves of fire, the terrifying explosion impact spread. The Miss Ninjas were caught off guard, and were immediately blown away by the impact. Hurrying up, Luz did not have time to think too much. He hurriedly stabilized his heels on the sea, and then while running, he shouted a reminder to everyone. Hurry, run, the farther the better. Fortunately, they had kept a safe distance of nearly 100 meters, otherwise they would not have been blown away by the impact. More importantly, the air ninja warship was still exploding violently, with waves of impact, and they needed to retreat further to ensure safety. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.